Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. It is a brand new episode of UFC Picks, and we're talking, of course, about UFC Houston. It's going down with Sean Strickland, the former champion, the middleweight champion in waiting, some might think. And he's taking on another man who might have a chance to hold that gold belt for America. His name is none other than Fluffy Hernandez, Anthony Hernandez, getting the main event shine once again. And he's got a chance to cement himself as a middleweight contender. It's all going down tomorrow night. I'm super fired up about it. Unfortunately, guys, our co-host Wiz is down for the count. He's not feeling well today. So we're going to be trudging through on the solo venture. If any friends of the show pop in the chat, maybe we'll get them on for a little impromptu meeting. But otherwise, we got to ride solo today, and that's okay. I'm fired up for these fights. I've written up all my previews, my breakdowns for every fight on the card. So I do have at least some thoughts. I've taped at least a little bit on every fight on the card. So fired up to talk about it with you guys, and hopefully we can find some good opportunities, some good angles. You know that we still are riding deep with the sharpest chat in the game. I see a lot of you guys already making your voice, known in the chat. Shout out to my guy Artem in the chat as well. A bunch of heavy hitters here. So appreciate all you guys taking the time out of your day. And without further ado, guys, let's get this shared up on the screen. We will start talking about this fight card from the first fight of the night all the way on up. So we've got Carly Judice, Crispy Carly. She's the biggest favorite on the card, guys. Looking right now, looks like minus 660 on Kalshi is about as good as you're going to do on the Judice side. On the other side, Juliana Miller, she's a plus 600 underdog, 6-1 on the comeback here. And I will say, last time out, I had, Juliana Miller plus 210 on the money line against Ivana Petrovic, right? So she's back in that underdog odds. She's an even bigger underdog this time, despite winning in her last fight. But a much different matchup here, a much tougher matchup here against Carly Judice. This seems to me like a very binary fight in that if Juliana Miller does not get takedowns, it seems very clear that she's going to be at a disadvantage in the striking department of this fight pretty substantially. Juliana Miller, the things that she does well at times, spamming volume, getting in somebody's face, being aggressive, looking for takedowns, looking to be opportunistic and pop out on the back. And that's about all the positive things you could say. If she gets the fight to the ground, she can be effective from the top position. She can start to hunt submissions and has some half decent ground and pound. I just don't think she's going to get consistent top time in this fight. I think she's going to struggle to control Judice, who I view as just a more physical, dynamic athlete. It's a WMMA fight. It's a massive favorite. Like, something could go wrong here, but it just feels to me like a fight where Judice has a really clear path to victory. If I was looking at the Miller side, I'd be looking at, the huge price, like 20-1 on Miller by sub. I'd be looking maybe at some takedown ladders on Miller. I feel like her winning a decision here looks like her taking a beating, but getting some takedowns and getting to some critical positions and maybe winning like a close split decision or something like that. So I'd be looking at the takedown ladders if that's available. Shout out to my guy, Dan from Half the Battle, an OG in the space. So a lot of heavy hitters in the chat today, guys. We got to stay woke to that and make sure that we see what they're saying about these matchups as well, so we don't miss any great nuggets of information. But all together on this fight, it's a big favorite, I think, for a reason. I think it's a little bit out of hand, but I think Carly Judice is just a more dangerous, more potent fighter heading in the right direction. I think that she would smoke Ivana Petrovic, right? I don't think that would be a competitive fight. I think that the wins that she's had, the competition that she's fought in the UFC, broadly speaking, has been tougher. And if Luana Santos can paint, a 60-piece combination on you in the first round, it just feels to me like Carly Judice, even if she has to weather a little bit of early clinching and some ugly early exchanges, I think eventually she's just going to find the button on this girl. She's going to land too many unanswered shots. She's going to hurt her. She's going to put her down. So I think Carly Judice wins the fight. I think she probably finishes it. But credit to Miller. She's, tough as an old leather boot. I just think she's going to get beat up really badly in this one. And I don't think her defensive capabilities are up to the task. All right, guys. Next up, we move to Yadier Valle taking on Jordan Leavitt. And I cashed in on a couple of these Yadier Valle fights early on. I saw this guy on Contender Series. I was fired up about the cardio. I thought that this guy really put on a great performance, fought hard for 15 minutes, fought in every position. He was willing to fight on the feet. He was willing to get active with those elbows, angry fighting on the feet, fighting with hatred in his heart, throwing big punches. But then he was able to get technical as well. He was able to mix in the takedowns. When he got taken down, he was quicker to get back up to his feet than his opponent. He was more insistent on getting back up, getting to dominant positions. I was impressed by this guy coming in because I had watched the fight that he had with Michael Aswell. A lot of people think that's a fight that could have gone either way. I've rewatched the fight. Personally, I thought Valle won that fight. I thought he won it 2-1. I thought that he's a really solid guy coming out of that Fury regional scene. And now he's back home in Texas, so to speak, right? He's taking on Jordan Leavitt, and Jordan Leavitt making his debut in this 145-pound weight class, right? He fought at 155, I believe, earlier on in his career, before the UFC, before the Contender Series, way back, maybe 2019 or so, even earlier. I believe that's when Jordan Leavitt last competed in the 145-pound class. So it's not like he's never done this before, but it's been a while. And up at 155, I don't know that the problem was as much him getting out-muscled by his opponents as him getting out-hustled. He kind of comports himself as a grappler, wants to go out there, dictate fights in the grappling. That's okay. Except when guys like Chase Hooper are 2 steps ahead of you in every scramble. They're just faster to the beat. They know where they want to be. They know what you want to do before you want to do it, and they're beating you to the positions. That's what I've seen from Jordan Leavitt. Even the Trey Ogden fight. Trey Ogden, a very good grappler in his own right. You look at what happened in that Trey Ogden fight. Trey Ogden put him in a very deep guillotine choke. He nearly was able to get him out of there. So Jordan Leavitt has been put in several submission attempts in the UFC. For a guy that is going to be a grappling prototype, it's very hard for you to have success when you're getting put back into other spots, when you're getting reversed, when you're putting yourself in these dangerous scrambles. And then what's his striking? He's mostly a guy that uses his kicks from the outside. He'll throw some low kicks. He actually has that one nice knockout up the middle in the UFC. I believe that was with a kick or a knee to Victor Martinez, but it was a linear shot up the middle. All of it to say, Jordan Leavitt just does not have, to me, a well-rounded tool set that you'd want to beat somebody like Valle. Could he catch him in a submission? That, I think, is his best path to victory. Like, we saw Valle get into some scrambles with Bulgarian in a fight that, we're not even sure that was a legitimate fight, right? So you look back, I think Valle is a good scrambler. I think he has a great guillotine choke. I think he does a lot of things well. But I also think that Valle is a muscle grappler. He's a guy that just asserts his will physically. And I do think Jordan Leavitt's a little bit more of a crafty grappler. He's a guy that likes to look for those positions, look to get an angle on you, look to pop out on your back. He does some things that are awkward and a little bit unusual. So I think Yadier Valle might have to swim through it a little bit, might have to go through some positions with this guy. But ultimately, I think the physicality, the cardio difference are 2 huge advantages for Valle. And I also believe that Valle has the better tools on the feet. I think he can compete with this guy on the ground. And I think that in rounds 2 and 3, I favor him in those positions, in those exchanges. Unless Jordan Leavitt has made a massive cardio improvement since coming down to 145, and that's something that we need to see proven before we could accept it as a fact, I think that Valle is just going to be able to have too much pace, too much aggression, too much fury, too much anger, too much, meanness, too much visceral damage in his shots. And I just don't see that with Jordan Leavitt's game. So respect to both guys. I think Jordan Leavitt, has at times, been too hated on in the UFC, but I bet on Chase Hooper to win by submission. I believe that was around plus 480. The number's not as good this time around, but I think Valle is probably going to pace this guy. And when it counts, I think he's going to get the submission, probably with that guillotine choke. All right, guys. Next up, that takes us to one of the more contentious fights on the prelims. We've got a 170-pound bout, a welterweight contest. Phil Rowe did miss the welterweight limit for this fight. Shout out to my guy, YBB, in the chat, says, Liam for president. I appreciate you, my brother. Far too kind. I would not want that responsibility, but I do appreciate you showing love in the chat. It's good to see you, my man. But back to this fight, right? I just mentioned Phil Rowe. He missed the weight class for this fight, 172 pounds. Not a great sign. You also saw Phil Rowe came in a little bit lethargic in his last fight. I thought that he could compete with Ko. Obviously, Ko did a great job taking him down, holding him down. But I didn't see a sense of urgency from Phil Rowe to get up to his feet. I didn't see that gumption, that will that you want to see from a fighter that they want it just as bad as you want it for them. And I think that when you look at John Paul, I'm not sold altogether on John Paul yet. That win on Contender Series, nicely done. You went out there, handled business, did things accordingly. I wasn't extremely high on his opponent coming into that matchup. But I think that when you look at what John Paul brings to the table, he's an explosive striker. But I do think he's a guy that's much better on offense, like a lot of immature or younger MMA fighters are, guys that are green, guys that are wet behind the ears. John Paul is 27 years of age, right? He's a young man, and he's a jiu-jitsu guy from his youth, and he's putting together this striking game. But I think he's a lot better on offense than he is on defense. You see guys that have been able to get off on him offensively. You think of Spike Carlisle, you think of Jacoby Jones. These guys were able to not only hurt him, in the case of Spike Carlisle, put him out, but also to damage him really bad. Jacoby Jones was just busting him up with shots from the, opening round of that fight. And he was able to put some elbows on him, cut him up, bust him open. The ref basically mercy stopped that fight because of all the damage he had accrued in a relatively short time. And so I think that John Paul has gotten better since then. But my question is how much? And you have to think back. He's taken some of these fights at 155 pounds. And now he's taking fights at 170. He looked noticeably smaller than Phil Rowe, right? If Phil Rowe had made the weight, that would still be the case. Phil Rowe's a big guy for this division. He's a long, awkward guy. The problem that I have with picking Phil Rowe to win this fight is Phil Rowe has horrible takedown defense. And we saw in his last fight a very clear blueprint to beat this guy. Take him down, hold the top position, and then you win the fight. Like, if you could do that to Phil Rowe, you can win the fight as long as you stay consistent, as long as you don't collapse. I think the way you play Phil Rowe, if you're looking at that side, more often than not here, you're looking at some Phil Rowe finish. You're looking at probably round 2 and 3 as those, as my guy Dan Tom likes to say, hot rounds, right? The rounds where Phil Rowe is really starting to get into his own, where he's finding his groove, where his opponent starts to slow down and he starts to pick up the pack. That's what Phil Rowe does really well. But that's the only way he's proven he can win in the UFC. And he's a guy that has fair losses. None of the losses stand out as like, man, how's Phil Rowe losing to this guy, right? He's losing to quality guys. But he just loses to quality guys and beats guys he's supposed to. That's kind of the run for Phil Rowe in the UFC. So John Paul is a guy where the expectations are a little bit higher for him than a guy like Phil Rowe. But UFC debut, right? You're doing it in front of a big crowd. This isn't a small venue. This isn't the UFC Apex, right? So some of those things where is John Paul's cardio going to hold up in a long fight where he gets pushed? I don't know about those things. So I could see a case for live betting Rowe if you see him moving around and looking good out there, but I just haven't seen enough enthusiasm, enough heart, enough energy, enough knowing that Phil Rowe is going to go out there and give me everything. When I want to bet on an underdog, I'm looking for guys that are going to go out there and give me everything in pursuit of victory, even if it doesn't work out, right? If you look back at some of the underdogs that we had last week, and I'll pull this up just for the sake of transparency, right? Last week, I bet on 2 underdogs on the UFC. I'm going to pull up the card here. And the 2 underdogs that I bet on both ended up losing the fights, right? So I had Eduarda Mora as a plus 285 underdog last week. She ended up losing the fight, but she clearly won around there. She had many submission attempts. She was very close to getting to her own win condition. It's a game of inches in fighting, right? We talk about who is the other one? My goodness, it was against the Basharat brother. Where is that fight? Oh, here we go. It's literally the next fight on the card. My apologies, guys. But if you look back, right, Johnny Vasquez, I had him plus 5XX as an underdog, right? And when you look back at that fight, he hurt him badly in the second round. He won a round clearly. He did a lot of good work in that fight, but he was not able to come away with the win. He kind of fumbled the bag there. He was a UFC debutant, couldn't quite get the job done. And so we flash back to this week, and it's like, I'm not getting a huge number on Phil Rowe. I know that there's glaring flaws with Phil Rowe's game. And the last time I bet Phil Rowe was against Co. And I just felt embarrassed that I bet him there because he didn't give me any effort, right? Last week, both those fighters, they may have lost, but Eduarda Mora fought through till the bitter end. She never quit on herself, even in a fight where she got her ass whooped in round 3, right? Gianni Vasquez, yeah, he lost the fight. Did he ever look like a plus 575 underdog? Not to me. He fought his ass off. He went out there, made it close, competitive, honest in all exchanges. So I just can't trust Phil Rowe on process enough to bet him pre in this kind of matchup. I think John Paul has a path to winning this fight via sub or decision if he elects to use his takedowns, take this fight to the ground. But if he goes out there and he wants to make it, contest about who is the cleaner striker and who's more sophisticated on the feet. I just think that's giving Phil Rowe a lot of chances to land big shots. He's a heavy-handed guy himself, and he can make something out of nothing in an instant, right? Round 2 and round 3 in fights where he's losing, Phil Rowe knocks people out and finds a way to come back and win. So if you're John Paul, you want to fight this steady Eddie, either 3 rounds of consistent dominance from the top position, or you want to fight very calculated on the feet and try and limit those exchanges, because Phil Rowe is a guy that can start to add up the volume sneakily over the course of 15 minutes, and he's also a guy that can just touch you and hurt you with one shot that you didn't see coming. So ultimately, I'm going to pick John Paul very hesitantly to win this fight via decision, but I think the Rowe late round props and live entry are something that I'd consider here. I appreciate you, my guy. Mora is a G. She fought for the coin. She just could not come through for us. No worries on that one. Speaking of somebody that will fight like a dog, Ramiz Brahimaj looked like he was down and out. Looked like his UFC career might be over when Temba Garimbo gave him the dog walking around the octagon and really didn't let him get any offense off for 15 minutes. People were starting to write off Ramiz like, hey, this guy doesn't have anything left. And, I got to say, shout out, I believe he's from the Bronx, New York. So no quit in New York. Ramiz Brahimaj found a way back, and now he's on a 3-fight win streak. Quietly racked those up. He went out there and dispatched Billy Ray Goff, was able to get him out of there. He also was able to go out there and clean up, what's his name? Oh, goodness, I'm drawing a blank now. What was it, Vanderford, that he was able to clean up in that last fight? So you see that Ramiz Brahimaj, he's a guy that has, a very dangerous front headlock. He's a guy that's made improvements on the feet. I think his confidence has improved as well over the course of his UFC career. But on the other side, I got to give a lot of credit and respect to Punahele Soriano. Guys, another career turnaround that's worth noting, right? Punahele Soriano looked like, he might be on the road to getting cut from the UFC at 185 pounds. He drops down to 170. Now he's 3-0 in his last 3 fights. Now he's gone out there and racked up huge DraftKings scores on every one of those appearances, right? So Punahele Soriano, what's the difference? The cardio, right? I know a lot of people still shit on this guy's cardio, but the Miguel Baeza fight was like a historic amount of output in the welterweight division. And he was able to go out there, rinse and repeat it for the whole 15 minutes. He defended the submission attempts when they came. And by the time it was all said and done, he had a ton of top position. He dominated the fight physically. He beat the ever-loving shit out of Miguel Baeza. And that was the way that it was, right? You look at the Varetnikov fight, Varetnikov had a couple, decent choke attempts, right? I'm sure Ramiz is going to try and build off that, going to try and, seize that opportunity. But I think if you're Punahele Soriano, the game plan for this fight is don't let this guy put me in a guillotine choke, apply my wrestling pressure, and put hands on him. And I think he's capable of doing all those things. These guys are both the same age, right? Virtual height parity, slightly bigger for Punahele Soriano. I think that Puna is a better wrestler. This guy wrestled D3 in college. He was an All-American. And I think when you look at how he moves physically, the guy knows how to move. He knows how to wrestle. I don't think his grappling is anything to write home about, but I do think positionally he knows where he needs to be to ride people's hips. I think when you look at Ramiz Brahimaj, he's got a very good front headlock. And he's got a pretty good top game. I just don't think he's going to get the fight to the top position. And in terms of, getting a front headlock on a guy, I don't think it's easy to front headlock a lot of, quality wrestlers because they can repenetrate their hips. They can pass using a lift and return. They can take a high crotch and double it off to get to that finish that avoids the guillotine choke. So I think if Puna was well coached for this fight, I think he just should have some advantages here. I think he's fought the better level of competition overall. And I think that when you look at what Punahele Soriano has done inside the octagon, he's got 6 wins in the promotion. He's done that against middleweights as well. He was cleaning some of those guys up without issue. And he fought 15 minutes to a decision with Brendan Allen. He's been out there and fought these really tough guys, made a good account of himself. The losses that Ramiz has on his record, they haven't aged great. They're to guys that have negative records in the UFC. They're to guys that are up there in age, right? So I just think Punahele Soriano, his losses are more forgivable. His style is more widely applicable, and I've loved what I've seen from him in the welterweight division. So I'm going to pick Puna to get this win. I'm going to pick him as a slight underdog in this fight. But I also want to say credit to Ramiz for rebuilding his career. I do think he's made substantive improvements. He changed, his training environment. I believe he trains with the Valle Striking Academy guys now. And I believe he also cross-trains with Kyle Crutchmer and who else trains with Kyle? He's on this card. It'll come to me, but there's somebody else on this card that trains with them as well. Is it Jacoby Smith? I think it is Jacoby Smith that trains with Kyle Crutchmer. So sorry, guys. I had to go through and check really quick because it was going to drive me crazy if not. But ultimately, yeah, I'm going to lean towards Puna to get this win. I think it's a KO or decision. I think if he loses this fight, he's probably getting tapped. He's probably finding his head into that hole. All right. Next up, guys, we got Nora Cornolle taking on Jocelyn Edwards. This is a rematch of a fight that I thought Jocelyn Edwards deserved to win the last time out, right? She went over to France. I thought she did the better work. I thought she deserved to get her hand raised, but unfortunately, that was not the way that it went. When you look back at it, Nora Cornolle did a really good job of winning the moments that count. I talk all the time about optics mattering in MMA. If you win the end of a round, if you get, a couple big shots late, the human mind is susceptible to these tricks where the last thing that you saw is the thing you remember most clearly. And I think Nora Cornolle, weaseled out a decision. She did just enough. She landed some solid shots. She landed more significant strikes technically. A lot of times when a fighter chooses to implement a grappling heavy style, their strikes are counted as total strikes, not significant strikes because they're from in close. So Jocelyn Edwards, competed on strikes overall. She just didn't have as many significant lands at distance. I think when you look at this fight, what has changed between these two women? Jocelyn Edwards is 30 years of age. Nora Cornolle is 36 years of age. So in the years between these fights, I think that we've seen Jocelyn Edwards, make some improvements in her game. I think her finishing instincts have been better. Her professionalism has been on point. She's been making weight more consistently. I think all those things are positives, green flags, so to speak, reasons I like Jocelyn Edwards to win this fight. On the other side for Nora Cornolle, what have we seen from her? She got dominated by Jocelyn Edwards in the grappling, and then Carol Hossa absolutely washed her in the grappling, guys. It was more than 10 minutes of the fight. 2 full rounds of the fight were spent with Nora Cornolle in defensive positions on the mat, getting taken down, getting controlled. It only took 3 takedown attempts for Carol Hossa to control Nora Cornolle for more than 10 minutes. And if that's what you're telling me leading into this fight, I think Edwards can compete on the feet. I think that Edwards can go out there and, defeat this woman on the mat, period. I think she could be the better wrestler and grappler, especially at this point. So for those reasons, I'm going to pick Edwards to get the win. Do I like the price? I don't like the price. But do I think that she wins? I do think that she wins. The one way I would look at this fight to try and get, unique is to say, Cornolle's never been finished before, but Jocelyn Edwards has been on a finishing streak and she's been getting much more aggressive and she had dominant positions last time they fought. So I would consider Edwards ITD, Edwards late round props. That would, again, be a way to pivot off of the big chalk, but to say, I'm going to open myself up to some exposure here on Edwards because I do think last time she nearly finished the fight and now she has an older opponent, and an opponent that she already got to spend 15 minutes with, got a feel for, and now she got to train, drill specifically what she wanted to defeat this opponent to get this fight back. So, yeah, I think that Jocelyn Edwards gets the win here, and I wouldn't be surprised if she gets the finish as well. All right. Next up, guys, we've got a Fury FC main event masquerading as a UFC prelim. I'm just kidding, of course, but 2 guys that both cut their teeth on that Fury FC scene in Texas. You've got the local Texas guy, right? The Texas native Cobra, Alden Correa. And last time out, we sung a lot of his praises on this show. I wrote up in my article why I thought he was live to win by knockout. I thought that Costa needed to go out there and aggro grapple, force the submission, or he would lose. I feel similarly about Luis Gurule in this matchup. I have respect for Gurule. I thought he was a solid fighter. I thought the win that he got via split decision over Nick Piccinini was a quality win, man. I thought he did a really good job, negating the wrestling there and keeping the fight upright and getting back up to his feet and not accepting bottom. Gurule is one of these guys who's a solid anti-grappler, but he's just not that good at the other parts of MMA. And so if you don't try and force a wrestling and grappling pace on him, and you make it about striking, you can compete with this guy. Jesus Aguilar was able to compete with this guy for 15 minutes on the feet. And so when I look at Alvin Coria and what I've seen from this kid, I think that he's getting better all the time. I think the bad looks on his resume are when he goes against guys that really know how to grapple, guys that really know how to wrestle. And I think Gurule is an excellent wrestler. I just don't see him being a super aggressive grappler. If I knew he was going to go out there and try and press the issue and just try and wrestle and grapple this kid like his life depended on it, I think he could win this fight, because I do think that's where Gurule is most crafty. That's where he's most dangerous. He's gone out there and choked guys out, in fights that were, gritty and contentious before. And I don't think he's a punk by any means. But when you're getting knocked out by Ode Osbourne, when you're getting hurt by Jesus Aguilar, we have to ask some questions about your chin and where it's at and how it's holding up. I think Correa is very live for the knockout here. But I just think that you have to also say, if Correa is live for the knockout here, what's the path for Gurule? And I think the path for Gurule, he's another one of those guys like Juliana Miller. You look at the multiple takedown props and you look at the submission angle. I think those are the ways he wins this fight. I think it's going to be very difficult for Gurule to look good in a fight that primarily plays out on the feet against this opponent. He's 5 years older. He's significantly smaller across the way. And I think that, again, Green King just said they pulled the Correa decision prop, which is weird. But, you look at who's going to get the hometown cooking. The guy who I believe is from Colorado in Gurule, or the guy who, is a hometown local guy in Correa. I think Correa is probably going to get the nod. So I think that Gurule's got to go out there and do this the hard way. Take this kid down and beat him up on the ground, look for a submission. But I don't think he's going to get it. So Correa by knockout, that's the pick for me. But I do think it's a big money line price, considering he was a huge underdog in his first fight. And you can find footage of him on the regional scene, getting wrapped up on the ground, getting tapped, getting, kind of out-wrestled, out-muscled before. So Gurule, he comes from a Greco-Roman background. He does have very legit wrestling. I talked about it before the Piccinini fight, because I did think people needed to give him that respect. I watched his old wrestling matches. But I also think when you want to wrestle upper body, it limits some of your entries. You got to be a lot more particular with how you get inside. And against a boxer like Correa, one of the skills that boxers have that some other martial arts don't focus on as much is the clinch breaking mechanics, how to get away from somebody when they want to attach themselves to you in the upper body. That's a fundamental boxing skill. And for that reason, I think Correa is going to be prepared for a lot of those upper body entanglements. But if Gurule is able to get a solid position on the ground, that's how he can take over and win this fight. All right. Next up, guys, this is a great fight. This is a really fun, well-matched fight. You've got Alibi Idiris looking for his first UFC victory. He was a massive favorite, minus 400 or so, in the Ultimate Fighter finale against Joseph Morales, and he got absolutely outclassed in that fight in a outcome a lot of people were not expecting. Morales got the better of him on the feet, on the ground, outpaced him, out-wrestled him, out-hustled him, and beat him. And it was a really, really good win for Morales, and Morales has looked like aces since then. I think Morales has looked like a contender in the UFC since that point. So we have to find out exactly what his ceiling is. He's now 3-2 in the promotion with a loss to Davison Figueiredo, back in his prime that I think we can all forgive him for. So you look on the other side, guys, Ode Osbourne, he's 1-4 in his last 5 fights. That sounds like a non-starter. But he beat Luis Gurule, the aforementioned, right? He knocked him out, who, dropped him badly. And then you look back and you say to yourself, okay, well, what else has Ode Osbourne been up to? He fought Steve Erceg to a very competitive decision. A few years back, he fought Charles Johnson to a competitive split decision. So Ode Osbourne at his best can compete with top guys, very skilled, talented fighters. The problem is Ode Osbourne, I think, has a few problems that are fundamental to his game. I think that he does get tired in extended fights. I don't think he manages his energy particularly well. I think he's gotten a little bit better at staying calm in the fire in recent years, but I just think that he's very jittery. He's a guy that likes to throw everything all at once, and explode into his stuff. And I think that you can put him in negative cycles, negative patterns on the mat. We saw Aso Almabayev, very easily get to some dominant positions there. We saw, Ode Osbourne get cleaned up by Jafel Filo with the shocking quickness. And Jafel Filo is an excellent grappler, but the way he's able to go step 1, step 2, step 3, and it's over. And Ode's not able to follow him and keep up with those paces. I think that in the first round here, Ode is very dangerous. Ode has the ability to hurt this guy. I do think Alibi, he likes to pressure. He likes to come forward. He likes to get in somebody's face. And if you take the front foot away from him, he's a lot less effective. He then starts to second guess himself. He doesn't have as many ideas. And when you look at Ode Osbourne, he's a guy that he'll take the front foot initially in a fight at times, or he'll, kind of allow somebody to come in and counter them. But then, he will be driven backwards over time, and he will allow people to start taking over, and he will allow people to start working their way to the front foot. And I think that is a path for Idiris here. The thing about Idiris is, in that fight with Morales, he showed some decent skills. He just was outskilled everywhere. And so he was running out of ideas for where to take the fight. I think against Ode Osbourne, we know that Osbourne is, dangerous on the mat, but we also know that he's extremely susceptible on the mat. That's one of the most vulnerable places in his game, where he gives up bad positions, where he allows people to submit him and finish the fight. And it's not like his chin is lights out either. We know that Ode's been hurt before. He's been rocked before. He's been dropped before. And I think that Alibi is a guy that, he's not easy to get a beat on in the striking when he's on the front foot, because he's flowing through different moves and he's willing to spin and he's willing to do different stuff. He's one of these guys that when his rhythm is going, everything looks good, right? But when one of the pieces starts to fall off, then it makes it hard for the rest of his game to function. The difficulty in this matchup is, even if he doesn't get his rhythm in round one, if Ode does not knock him out or submit him in the first round, I think there's a chance he gets his rhythm in round two and takes over the fight. And so for that reason, I think it's a fight where Ode's path to victory is in the first two rounds more often than not. Could he grease out a decision? I think it's possible, but I think Alibi is a guy who throws volume, puts stuff out there, tries things, attempts offense, and I think he's got better cardio. So I think that when you look at, how Alibi wins this fight, it's by being smart, putting a pace on Ode, sticking in his face, moving around, not letting him touch you with the power shots, and making him frustrated. And I think if he's able to do that, if he's able to mix in the takedowns, I think that that's going to lead to a prosperous night for him. So ultimately, I picked Alibi to win his last fight, and I was so gutted with how he turned out there. I was like, man, was I just completely wrong about this kid? And I rewatched his tape, and I looked back into his resume. He fought some half-decent guys before. He's not a guy who's just a complete, unknown, but he's also a guy who's taken a step up here, right? So, I would say he's taking a minor step down from Morales, but he's taking a step up from what he was beating on The Ultimate Fighter, what he was beating on his regional scene in Kazakhstan. And now we're going to find out, if he's able to tango with guys at this level. But he's the younger guy. He's the guy that I think pushes the better pace. He's given up a lot of size here, So again, I think technique for technique, I think it's Ode for the first 6.5, 7.5 minutes. I don't really know that I trust Ode's cardio. And Ode's a guy that he doesn't really have a lot of great wins on his resume. You look at the guys that he's beaten, and there are a lot of guys that aren't hacking it at the UFC level. They're guys with negative records. And so I don't have a strong lean either way on this fight. I just feel like if you didn't get the early plus money on Ode, not really loving the prices where they're at now, if the price flipped completely and Alibi went to being a dog, that might talk me into getting involved in this fight on a money line side. But otherwise, I'll probably just stay away from this, because I could see a clear path for both guys. Like, I could see Ode winning this fight via stoppage. I could see Alibi winning this fight, via cardio pacing him down the stretch, via decision. So for me, just a volatile fight and, closely lined, that makes sense to me. All right, guys. This takes us to another well-matched fight. Carlos Leal, Chidi Njokuani, two guys that, made their bones outside the UFC, but Chidi's obviously been here a little bit longer. And, he's got 5 wins under his belt in the promotion, but barely hanging above 500, and he's 37 years of age. So you have to ask yourself, when is the rubber going to meet the road for Chidi? He cuts a lot of weight, and he's getting up there in age. That's a combination that's not great for your durability. But his last fight, it's not like he took some vicious knockout. Frankly, he didn't take hardly any damage at all, right? Jake Matthews hopped on his back, got the choke, and that felt like a very binary fight, right? Like, either Jake was going to go out there and sub him, or Chidi was going to knock him out. That just felt like how that fight was going to play out to me leading into it. And, leading into this fight, I think both these guys are live to win by knockout, right? We just saw Carlos Leal get knocked out in the very first round against a 41-year-old Muslim Salikov. So age is but a number, right? If you're going to run forward, brawl, get in somebody's face, take big chances in the pocket, you could get knocked out. And we saw that Carlos Leal, he's willing to do that. Even against Alex Morono, we saw Morono, that elbow came over the top, right? A couple of shots from Morono were landing on Leal. He just didn't have the power to capitalize. He didn't really have anything to get the respect of Leal to keep him off of him. Rinat Fakhretdinov, he's not known for his big power shots. But we did see that Rinat Fakhretdinov was able to go out there and land with enough force and emphasis that it got some respect from Carlos Leal, especially down the stretch in that fight. So I think when you look at a guy like Chidi, he's got the ability to land kicks from a very close range. We've seen Chidi Njokuani knock people out from, let's say 6-8 inches away from them by getting a high kick up to their head. It's just remarkable stuff. The guy's got flexibility, the guy's got power, and he's dynamic in the clinch. He's got the knees, he's got the elbows, he's got those techniques. But I do remember him not getting a couple guys out of there since going to the welterweight division. I think he's been a lot more hesitant about letting, everything go and then running out of gas, as has happened to him in the middleweight division several times in the UFC. So I think that Chidi Njokuani is a liability on the mat. I know that he's got a black belt. I know that he's spent some time grappling, but I just think when you look at the Bellator footage, when you look at the footage in the UFC, when guys get on top of Chidi, excuse me, he does not look good, especially if they're guys with any kind of skills, any kind of ability. I think that Carlos Leal is a guy that could surprise people and sneak in some takedown attempts here and try and take this guy down. I think that would be a really wise thing to do. If I was in Carlos Leal's corner, I would be like, dude, let's go wrestle this guy. Why would we go stand with Chidi Njokuani? But Carlos Leal, you kind of are what you are. He loves to stand and bang. He loves to go out there and trade. And Chidi is a guy that he can go down, right? He's got 9 losses inside the distance. You have to acknowledge that Leal could put him down. Leal, I think, is a little bit tougher and more durable, but Chidi has better firepower just in terms of his ability to get guys out of there, to hurt guys quickly. Leal kind of has to warm up a little bit to throw a lot of shots to get going. And I think Chidi is the kind of guy that he could touch you with one and kill you. MAB was known for his durability before he fought Chidi Njokuani. And then 30 seconds later, people were talking about, why were we calling this guy durable? He was asleep. He got knocked out in the first round. So Chidi, a powerful guy, but 37 years of age, I'm almost more inclined to look at the violence angle, the unders. My guy Cam says he's got Chidi decision 10-1. That's a very big number. 9 decision wins. I think Chitty's more technical in the stand-up. Leal might gas if he tries to wrestle. I think that's fair. Also, we know that Leal could just get robbed stone blind, right? Like he did against Rinat. So, yeah, for me, I think, again, this is another fight where if you got the early plus money on Chidi, I totally understand people bullish on that side. But I do think that you got to give Leal a little bit of respect too. He's a huge favorite coming into his last fight. When he fought Morono, he was a big favorite. When he fought Rinat, he was plus 190 underdog. Looked like it was a minus 110 pick him either way. So I just feel like Leal has made a pretty good account of himself, even though he got knocked out in his last fight. And Chidi, he's overall made a good account of himself. But when you look at some of the losses, it's the willingness to check out. I just feel like Leal, you have to kill the man to beat him, and you might be able to kill him. But I just think that Chidi, if you can put doubt in his mind, if you can put a lot of pressure on Chidi, I think he will fold the tent. So that's why I am ever so slightly leaning towards Leal. I think he's more likely to win the fight via submission, which is why I give him the slight edge there. But I think both these guys very live to win the fight via finish in the first 2 rounds. I think it's going to be super violent. All right. Next up, guys. Speaking of super violent, we've got Zach Reese taking on Michel Pereira. And Zach Reese, I've mentioned this theme about other fighters on the card. I'm going to take a quick sip of the coffee. So cheers to anybody who's having a coffee with me. Absolutely fantastic. But we're talking about Zach Reese. And I'm not a huge Zach Reese guy. I think Zach Reese is a fine fighter. I just don't think he's a special fighter. I think when you look at Zach Reese's matchmaking in the UFC, he has fought some of the easiest guys in the promotion at the weight class. He fought a Jose Medina to a decision. Medina is 0-3 in the UFC. He's fought other guys as well in the promotion. Cedric Dumas, not a standout guy, not a guy who people are thinking, man, he's the next guy up. He fought Dusko 4-6 in the promotion. McVeigh 0-2 in the promotion. Julian Marcus 3-5 in the promotion. Cody Brundage 5-7-1 in the promotion. Everybody he fights has a negative record. Like the guy just goes out there, fights the bottom end of the division, and he's done okay, right? He's 4-2 in the UFC. The problem I have, he's 2-2 in fights that end via knockout, in fights that end inside the distance. So, you're seeing that Reese has some violent capabilities, but if you get violent with Reese, if you turn that gun back on him, shit goes sideways for him, right? Like Reese does not like to be the nail as much, right? And he's another guy, I think his chin is a little bit suspect, right? We've seen him get put out with the short ground and pound shots. We've seen him get put out with the slam KO a la Rampage Jackson. So when you look at what Reese brings to the table, he's the bigger guy in this fight, the younger guy in this fight. He's got less fight miles on him, and he's from Texas. So those are all positive things that I would say are reasons to look at the Reese side, especially as an underdog. But on the other side, I think Michel Pereira has the much better wins. Like beating Michal Oleksiejczuk, that's a much better win than anything Zach Reese has done, in my humble opinion, right? Michel Pereira, his win over Andre Petroski, that's a better win than anything that Zach Reese has accomplished in the UFC as far as I'm concerned. So when you look at these two guys, I think Pereira is the far more accomplished fighter, but he doesn't have any momentum coming into this fight. He's lost 3 fights in a row, and he lost the fight to Fluffy, which is totally fair, right? And then he lost the fight to, and by the way, in that fight, I will just note, he landed a couple good shots early that got Fluffy's attention in the first round, and he had a half-decent guillotine attempt in round 2 that Fluffy had to respect. But other than that, he got rinsed, no doubt about it. Then he goes out there and fights Abus Magomedov, and to be honest with you guys, it was just a dog shit fight. Like, I don't think Abus looked particularly good. I didn't think Michel looked particularly bad. I thought they fought very close, and I thought the reason Michel lost the fight is because he ran a reverse marathon and his optics looked terrible, right? He just was backing up for a lot of the fight. I didn't think Abus was landing particularly clean. I didn't think that Michel looked like he was in a lot of danger in that fight. I thought he defended a lot of the takedowns well. Overall, I thought he fought okay. I just thought it was a lackluster performance where he didn't show any dynamism or any violence or any, gusto or passion. And that's why it was disappointing. Then you look at the Kyle Dawkins fight, and it seemed to me like he almost overcorrected the steering wheel. He came out very aggressive against Dawkins and then got clipped on the chin with a, counter left hook that he never saw coming. And I think Dawkins is hungry. I think Dawkins, is a savvy guy. He's a very experienced guy in his own right, a lot of experience at the UFC level before coming back. And Kyle Dawkins was hungry for everything that night, man. I think he would have been a problem for a lot of guys. And I look at this fight and I say to myself, Michel Pereira at his best is much better than Zach Reese. I don't think he's at his best anymore. I still think he can beat Zach Reese, but I think it's another one of these fights where I'm more comfortable leaning towards somebody's going to get violently finished here. It just feels to me like Zach Reese is a guy that's going to push the issue. He's going to try and get in this guy's face. He's going to try and land big shots. He's going to throw and attempt offense. I think Zach has good offense. I just think he's got bad defense, porous defense coming back. I think Michel Pereira, one thing that he pulls out like once every 5 UFC fights is his ability to submit people. And I do think that Zach Reese is known for having a crafty guard game and being aggressive there, but I'm not sure that his grappling game will hold up to real scrutiny. We've seen him taken down by low-level guys, especially when he gets tired. And I think that even Dusko was able to mix in some takedowns, have some success there. So I just think that this is a fight where if I knew I was getting the best version of Michel Pereira, I would pick him to win this fight very comfortably. But because I don't know that, I'm going to hesitantly pick Michel Pereira to get the win here. Just not sold on Zach Reese. If he wins this one, I'll take my hat off to the guy, right? In Texas, things haven't worked out for him. He's 0-1 with 1 no contest in Texas so far. So can Zach Reese finally get, things right? The kid out of Shiner, Texas, the Savage, can he get it right? Or will Demolidor be dancing on his grave? We will find out, guys. It's all going down tomorrow. I think it's going to be violent, though. Next up, whoo boy. When you talk about a fight that checks all the boxes for me, this checks all the boxes for me, guys. Short notice fight put together here. Jacoby Smith was supposed to take on Seon Hyuk Ko, right? Ko is a very talented fighter, decorated 2-0 in the UFC. And instead, Josiah Harrell is stepping up on short notice, the muscle hamster, guys. He's an Ohio boy. So we've got a D1 college wrestler against an Ohio boy. You know that I've got love for both sides in this matchup. Let's talk about them both, right? We'll start with the underdog. We'll start with the short notice, Josiah Harrell. And you look at what Josiah brings to the table. This is a guy who is willing to take damage to win a fight. I have seen him get busted up. I've seen him take some damage. I've seen him wear it, and he keeps coming forward. He keeps looking for victory. The guy is on a 17-fight pro-am win streak, meaning he is 11-0 as a professional, just like Jacoby Smith, but he also had a 6-0 undefeated run on the amateur circuit as well. Josiah Harrell, Jacoby Smith, these are two guys that you got to teach them how to lose because they don't know much about it. You look at Josiah Harrell, what does he do well? He's got a very persistent get-up game. When he gets taken down, he does not accept the bottom position. He uses a combination of tools like a whizzer and a stand-up, like a leg lock entry, ducking underneath his opponent, inverting, looking to enter on legs, using it to stand up, using it to wrestle deep single legs. He does a lot of things very creatively and very well. I would say in terms of what we've seen from these two guys in their MMA career so far, Josiah Harrell is the more talented and decorated jiu-jitsu practitioner. I think that Jacoby Smith is the more talented and decorated wrestler. So when you look at how this matches up on paper, you know, sometimes guys that are really good wrestlers do not want to engage with guys that are very good or dangerous jiu-jitsu players. I think that Jacoby Smith has the horsepower and the confidence to get into these exchanges, and I think that he could land some ground and pound in these exchanges. But I think Josiah Harrell, very, very intricate with his understanding of some of these positions, and a guy that's willing to go, through the fire, willing to roll one way, then the other, go back, scramble. And he seems to have Energizer Bunny cardio. The problem with that is that he's on short notice here. So we've seen guys before that are known for having excellent cardio. They take the fight on short notice, and the cardio isn't quite what you've seen on the regional scene. That is my biggest fear for Josiah Harrell coming into this matchup. The other big fear for him in this matchup is that you have to talk about his opponent, Jacoby Smith, with a tremendous amount of respect. Jacoby Smith was a Division I All-American at Oklahoma State University. They have a tradition of putting out high-level mixed martial artists like Daniel Cormier, like Johnny Hendricks, among others. They have put out championship caliber fighters before. They have a long storied tradition of doing so. And when you look at the guys that he trains with, the Kyle Crutchmers of the world and these other guys, he used to train at Fortis MMA. Now he's doing his own thing with Kyle Crutchmer and the crew. And you look at Jacoby Smith, man, he hits extremely hard. He's got fast hands. He's a really, really dynamic athlete. He's a special athlete among special athletes. There's a lot of great athletes in the UFC. If you were rank ordering the athletes in the UFC, Jacoby Smith would be, certainly in the top 25th percentile of those UFC athletes on that athleticism scale, and probably higher than that. You look at Jacoby Smith, the guy's got muscles on top of muscles on top of muscles, right? He's got stand at 5'10" with a 72-inch reach. He's going to have a 5-inch advantage in reach. He's going to have a 3-inch advantage in height. And he hits like an absolute truck. So the thing that scares me for Josiah Harrell coming into this fight is that Josiah Harrell oftentimes has to get into a little bit of a war in the early going before he starts to take over and dominate the fight. That happened in his last fight in the LFA against a very quality opponent, 13-3 as a professional, really gave him a go. And when you look at Josiah Harrell, I think that he is excellent, and I don't think he's ever going to quit on himself. And when I talk about underdogs that I'm looking for guys that have skills. I'm looking for guys that have heart. I'm looking for guys that want it as bad as you want it for them. That's what I'm looking for, and he does check a lot of those boxes. But I'm scared that he's going to get nuked via athletic cheat code in the first round. Jacoby Smith has an athletic cheat code that he can pull on a lot of guys. He hits like a truck. He moves very fast. He gets in and out of range. He's super dangerous. So I think the downside risk for a guy like Jacoby Smith is that, number one, he's in Texas. He trains locally. He wants to go out there and make a big statement, put on a big show. He's got the short notice opponent. Maybe he overlooks him a little. Maybe he thinks to himself, you know what? I'm going to go blast through this guy. And if he goes out there like he did against Nico Price, and he's shooting like crazy, doing all the stuff, spending a lot of energy, he looked really tired in that fight. And you got to give him credit because he went out to the corner, he sat down, he recomposed himself, he came back out fine in the second round and did what he needed to do to get the job done. But that's a washed guy in Nico Price who's got better things to do than staying there with Jacoby Smith on a Saturday night. Josiah Harrell is built like this. He was willing to sign up to fight Jack Della Maddalena in 2023. He's willing to sign up to fight Jacoby Smith right now. And you look at both these guys, you've got a younger guy in Josiah Harrell with the same amount of pro experience, with experience on the amateur circuit as well. He was supposed to be signed to the UFC 3 years ago, so they've had their eye on this guy. They know he's a talented guy. I think Josiah Harrell's a little bit undersized. I think he's not likely to win the first round here because of his style and because of his opponent. But I think that Josiah Harrell has a chance to win this fight. I think he's got a chance to outlast and out-hustle a guy like Jacoby Smith, who's extremely talented, who's extremely powerful, who's extremely skilled in the wrestling. I just think that Jacoby Smith has had a lot of matchups where he has not faced this level of resistance in achieving the top position. And I think for Jacoby Smith in all those other matchups, if things started to go dicey on the feet, if he didn't like where he was at, if he didn't have the cardio to keep blowing out, he could go get a takedown and commit to a kill shot, and he was going to get it. And I think against Josiah Harrell, if he needs to do that here, he can commit to the kill shot and get it, but Harrell will scramble back up to his feet, and that's the problem here is if he's able to hold him down, that'll be another chip in the shoulder of, oh, okay, Jacoby Smith, this guy, his top control is next level. I will have to give him that. But Josiah Harrell, what I've seen from this guy is that holding him down is a very arduous task, and you're going to spend a shitload of energy if you want to do it. So I think this is a good test for Jacoby Smith. He goes from being one of the biggest favorites in UFC history to being a much more reasonably priced favorite in this fight, and I think it's because the books know what time it is. Josiah Harrell is a real fighter. These Ohio boys come to scrap, and I think he's going to come out there and give a very honest account of himself and maybe come on and win round 2 or 3, maybe come on and even take over. If Jacoby Smith doesn't have the cardio to push when this thing gets greasy, if he doesn't get him out of there in the first round, I think Josiah Harrell is going to give himself every chance. Whoo! Oh, I'm so fired up for that fight, guys. That's as good as it gets. Jacoby Smith, A-plus athlete, really, really good blue chip prospect, but Josiah Harrell, old-fashioned junkyard dog. The coffee is going, and we've got Sergey Spivac, Ante Delija. This is a heavyweight fight that I can honestly say, guys, it didn't really get my juices flowing this week. I didn't really care so much for this fight. Here's the things that I'll talk about on both sides. Number one, Ante Delija, you got to say with this guy, he had a solid run outside the UFC, came to the UFC as a finished product, virtually 35 years of age, trains with the champion, Tom Aspinall. And I picked him to beat Marcin Tybura, to get the revenge after all those years when Tybura, he suffered that injury the first time that he fought him. Then he gets a chance to go out there, do it all over again, and he's able to get the win. Ante Delija then comes out there for the Waldo Cortez Acosta fight. Both these guys, common opponent, Waldo Cortez Acosta, and we'll talk about how it went for both guys. Ante Delija was having some marginal success. He's landed some shots. He's doing okay. And then what happened in that fight? He eye pokes him, thinks he gets the win. And if you've ever competed before, guys, when you think you've won, when you think the match is over, you experience this adrenaline dump. Oh, thank goodness. Like everything's perfect. You get these nice feelings. You feel all this tiredness and euphoria and all this stuff. And imagine right after that, they tell you, psych, ref screwed you. You got to go fight again. Ante Delija thought he won the fight. He was celebrating as though he won. Then they tell him you got to go fight again. I thought it was completely unfair. I thought it was such a screw job finish. But with that being said, the number one rule of fighting in life is protect yourself at all times. And Ante Delija was not protecting himself. He got beat up by Waldo when they restarted the fight. I feel bad for him, but that's the way that it went. When you look at Sergey Spivac, he also fought Waldo, guys. And that was a really competitive fight. That was a super honest fight. I thought it could have went either way. And so when you look at, where we're at with Sergey Spivac, Spivac lost to Jailton Almeida, and he got TKO'd on the ground, but he had moments in that fight, and he gave himself a chance. Sergey Spivac is 15 pounds heavier than his opponent here, 16, right? They're about the same size. He's a couple years younger. So Sergey's the younger guy. He's a little bit bigger in terms of he's got more weight in his ass, and I think that he's the better wrestler and grappler of the pair. I've seen Ante Delija get taken down by a Capoloza and some of these other guys, right? Spivac is his own worst enemy. I don't think he's got the confidence at all times that he needs to be a UFC fighter. I think he's a guy that sometimes freezes up under pressure and doesn't go out there and show his best. But, just looking at how this fight could play out, I think it's pretty binary. I think if Spivac can't get takedowns, he's probably getting knocked out. And if Spivac can get takedowns, I think he's probably going to win the fight. It's possible that he even finishes the fight at that point. I think that Spivac is a guy that takedown ladders is a way to look at playing him. And, he's a pretty adept submission artist. I think he's the better submission grappler of these two. And, he's got a wide variety of stuff that he attacks from the top position. I just don't really trust his aggression level. I feel like Ante Delija has a little bit more hate in his heart when he fights, and Sergey Spivac just seems to me like a nice guy. So he's mean with the ground and pound, though. I'll give him that. When he gets to the top position, he feels that confidence a little bit more. But you just see that when he's on the feet, he's throwing shots more for technical volume than, going out there and trying to really sting somebody and hurt them. I thought he competed okay with Waldo in the striking exchanges. Waldo just looked like he put more zip and vinegar on his shots, and so he was able to get the win as a result. All right. That takes us to our next fight on the card. Oh, boy. Somebody said it. Our guy Green King in the chat says, this is a banging card. Some good scraps on this one. I'm going to circle back through the chat for a second. My guy Cam says, if it gets out of round one, Harrell super live. Cole says, let's go. We got people, Comar's rooting for Reese. Excited to see the next couple of fights. Our guy Stones says, line movement's been wild. Absolutely. So wanted to say, appreciate all you guys that are rocking with me in the chat, everybody who's showing up live, doing the damn thing. We got 69, 70 people rocking with us live. So God bless each and every one of you guys. And we're on to the next fight. Dan Ige, 50K turned to 100K. He 2 times it. And now we got Mel Costa on the other side. He's on the hottest run of his career. Started in the UFC's lightweight division on hard times. He was not winning fights. He was struggling. And then he moved down to 145 pounds. And it's been a lot smoother sailing there. He does have a loss to Steve Garcia, who is a ranked featherweight, and he did get viciously finished in that fight. But technically, it was at 155 pounds. And his other loss was his debut against Thiago Moises. He lost that fight. He's 6-2 in the UFC, and both of his losses were at 155 pounds. Now he's taking his biggest step up in competition to this point. He knocked out Morgan Charrier in his last fight. Charrier is a man who had never been knocked out in 30-plus professional mixed martial arts contests, if my memory serves. He had been submitted once before very early on, but hard guy to finish. So Mel Costa, clearly a dangerous guy. He's got very good kicks. He's a long, rangy operator. But you look at this matchup, he technically has the same reach on paper as a guy like Dan Ige. He will be 3 inches taller and 5 years younger than his opponent, the American from Hawaii, Dan Ige. But when you look at Dan and what he brings to the table, he's fought the very best guys in the division for a long time. He's a high-level operator in that way. He's well-rounded. He's skilled in all positions. He's not a slouch, in the wrestling or the grappling. The highest level guys in the division have been able to out-wrestle and out-grapple Dan Ige. But other guys have not been able to do that with any kind of consistency. And you look at Dan Ige and what he is able to do. He's a powerful puncher on the feet. He's a very sharp boxer. I would say he's clearly the better boxer of these two athletes. The difference is Mel Costa has a much more dynamic kicking game that he can operate at a further distance. And this is a fight taking place in the big cage. So we have to be cognizant of the fact it may be difficult for Dan Ige to close the distance at times in this contest. But the one thing about being a footwork heavy, bouncy fighter that likes to operate on the outside and use a lot of big spins and big movements is that you have to have a very good cardiovascular base to back that up. And when you talk about a guy like Idiris Alabi, he does have that. When you talk about a guy like Mel Costa, I have more questions about whether or not he has that. We've seen him drop round threes before in the UFC. We've seen him go out there, implement a wrestling and grappling heavy game plan against Steve Garcia, only to gas out very quickly into the second round. And so I question whether Mel Costa can fight a very hard-paced fight when meeting significant resistance. And I think that Dan Ige, for all of the faults to his game, still provides significant resistance in all phases. I want to point back to the fact that against Lerone Murphy, one of the top guys in the division, one of the guys who is, basically one win away from a title shot in a crowded featherweight field. Lerone Murphy got dropped badly by Dan Ige. I think you could make a credible argument that Dan Ige won that fight 29-28. I think if you look back at a lot of Dan Ige's fights, even the fights where he loses, he normally takes a round off of his opponent. So I think that Dan Ige is a guy that's hard to beat. He's hard to beat clean. We know that he's very difficult to finish, never been finished in his career. And so is it possible that that dam breaks at 34 years of age? Yes, that is possible. But I think we look at Mel Costa. He's been finished twice in the UFC. He's been submitted. He's been hurt with strikes. He's been, beaten soundly, right? And then we look at Dan Ige, hard guy to get one over on. He's a plus 190 underdog in this spot. And I feel like he's got a real chance to win this fight via KO or a close decision. So for me, I think it's a close fight. I think it should be a little bit closer lined. I would lean slight favorite Mel Costa here based on the fact that he's a little bit younger. He's on a better streak. He's been doing better over his recent performances, and he's looked great at featherweight. But I'm old enough to remember everybody thought the Feely fight was fixed, and, Feely didn't really offer much resistance in the grappling there. And I'm old enough to remember some of these other fights where Mel Costa won, but didn't really blow anybody's hair back, like the Julian Erosa fight, where he looked good at kicking range, and they both kind of, accepted kicking range in that fight. And then, he started to slow down again down the stretch. So I just don't really believe that Mel Costa has distinguished himself as minus 2XX against this level of competition. But I've been wrong about him at times in the past, and I want to give him the respect that, this kid's clearly made improvements since getting to the UFC, still only 29 years of age. Even if he loses this fight, I expect he will continue to make his name heard in this featherweight division. Next up, guys, we got Jeff Hands of Steel Neal taking on Uros Medic. This is going down in the co-main event. I want to just talk about the betting trends coming into this fight. I won't talk about it for every fight on the card, obviously, but I wanted to mention it for this fight because I do feel like it's important. You've got Jeff Neal on the one side, and I think that people, broadly speaking, are really down on Jeff Neal these days because he's been on hard times lately in the UFC. I think that's fair. I believe he's 3-5 over his last 8 fights. But it's also worth noting he's 5-2 as a favorite in the UFC for just a 2.9% return on investment. So Jeff Neal, he's won way more often than not when he's favored to win a UFC fight, right? 5 out of 7 times. But because he's dropped the ball a few times as a favorite, like when he was a favorite against Neil Magny of about minus 180, minus 185, and he dropped the ball in that matchup, it's the kind of thing that costs you. When you're a favorite, you really can't afford to lose many times. Meanwhile, on the other side, Uros Medic 2-1 as a UFC underdog, so a much smaller sample size, but has a positive return on investment of 70%. And he's also gone out there and won in this price range before, right? You look at Uros Medic, he was an underdog of about plus 185 against Matthew Semmelsberger, and he was able to clean him up. The difference there, Matthew Semmelsberger no longer with the UFC, a middling fighter, let's say a 500 guy, I believe a New York local as well. So shout out to Matthew Semmelsberger. I think he might have even played Marist football. I might be out on a limb here, but shout out to him if I'm right about that. But in any case, guys, we bring it back to the action. That was a high-paced fight. That was a crazy fight. Uros Medic is a knock you down. I get knocked down, you get knocked down, somebody stays down, and the fight's over type of guy, right? He goes out there, kill or be killed archetype, very violent fighter, 15 fights in a professional setting. He's never seen the judges' scorecards. On the other side, Jeff Neal is a guy that knows how to knock people out. He absolutely brutalized Vicente Luque in that fight, dropped him about 5 times. I don't know what the referee was waiting for in that contest, waited until Vicente Luque was absolutely flatlined, face down, And you look at Jeff Neal, he's coming off of a career worst knockout loss. He got stopped with strikes on the regional scene against Kevin Holland way back in the day. And from then until his most recent fight against Carlos Prates, he had not been stopped. Then he got brutally knocked out with that elbow, guys. And you don't know how somebody's going to come back from that. Could he come back and look the same, if not better? Absolutely. Could he come back and look like a shell of himself? I think that's very possible. He's 35 years of age. He's dealt with health injuries, drugs and alcohol. Name it, he's dealt with it, right? Inside the octagon, outside the octagon. Jeff Neal's had a tough run. And you look at the losses, guys, there's not a bad loss on his resume. He's lost to all guys with positive records in the UFC, except Martin Sano, however many years ago, right? Basically, to beat Jeff Neal, you got to be a real guy. You got to be a quality guy. But you ask yourself, where's Jeff Neal at? And that's the thing that's hard to answer here, because the best version of Jeff Neal should beat Uros Medic. Here's the other truth. The best version of Jeff Neal should be able to beat Uros Medic in multiple phases. I think that the distinguishing factor between these two guys is that Jeff Neal is a better grappler, a more natural welterweight, and a better wrestler than Uros Medic. And for those reasons, he should have a clear path to victory that has nothing to do with the striking. But he will probably elect to strike and give Medic his best chance to win. Medic is a guy that is a southpaw striker that is willing to go blow for blow and willing to take one to give one, and he's a powerful hitter. Jeff Neal is a much more calculated striker. He's much more defensively responsible, and he also hits like a truck. But Jeff can be hit, and Jeff can be hurt, and Jeff can be found on the feet by guys that are clever. So I think that this is probably going to be an insane banger, or Jeff Neal is going to show levels and take this guy down. So for me, I think that Jeff takedown props, submission angle could be very sneaky here. I like violence in this fight overall. I think somebody's getting served. And Uros Medic is just a guy that he basically says, I'm coming back with the shield or on it, you or me. And he goes out there and fights hard. And I think you got to respect that style, but you also have to know that style comes with some limitations, and, it could lead to him getting sparked here. So I think that this is one of the more violent fights on the card. Should be an awesome one. I can't stomach Jeff Neal minus 220, but I respect it. I know some sharp guys that are really big on the Jeff Neal side here, but I just think the trends, the youth, the size, there's a couple things that make this an awkward click. The southpaw and southpaw dynamic, all those things. But I think the best version of Jeff Neal absolutely smokes Uros Medic. I just don't know that we're getting that anymore. Okay. Next up, guys, Sean Strickland against Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, the main event of the evening. Potentially, our future middleweight title challenger will come from this one. The former champion, Tarzan, Sean Strickland. Earlier this week, I tweeted out Psycho Sean Strickland. I think it's a better nickname. He should absolutely switch it. But in any case, on the other side, Fluffy Hernandez, one of the best nicknames in fighting, right? A guy that looks like he might be a little bit soft if you're just like taking a glance at him. Doesn't look like a big muscle-bound athlete, but every bit the part of a fighter. You see how this guy competes, and he's a fighter's fighter. He goes out there and he gets in people's face. He looks to break them. He's mean. He fights, grimy. He wants to make it a dirty, disgusting slog through the mud where it's a brutal fight, and you have to start asking yourself hard questions. And Sean Strickland is a guy that has been in a lot of deep training situations. He's a guy that really goes through the fire in the training room, and that does put you in a position to weather some of these storms. Sean Strickland, for all of the things that you could say negatively about the guy, and there are many, right? Respectfully, right? He's a former UFC champion, so he deserves that respect, no doubt about it. But also, for all the things that you could say negatively about Sean Strickland, he's been stopped just 2 times in his 36-fight professional career. And one of those times was Alex Pereira, right? Pereira is just a nasty hitter, was able to knock him out. And then Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos was able to spinning head kick him into the 3rd dimension all the way back in 2018. Those are the only 2 stoppage losses for Sean Strickland in his pro MMA career. He's been fighting in the UFC forever, guys. This guy made his UFC debut all the way back in 2014 against Bubba McDaniel, ironically winning via rear naked choke. Sean Strickland was a jiu-jitsu bro when he got to the UFC. I know that new fans will not believe me when I say this. He was a jiu-jitsu bro. He came in, he got a submission win, and he's never done it again. He's literally never, I don't even know if he's attempted another submission in the UFC. Sean Strickland gave up on jiu-jitsu to become a stand and bang, man dance boxing advocate, and God bless him. That's what he does now. So shout out to Blessed by the Odds, says, how the F does Liam not have 50,000 subs yet? Insane people. I appreciate you. I hope that everybody who's watching with us live hits that sub button. I hope that you guys hit that like button if you've enjoyed the conversation so far. I hope you guys drop a comment if you got any questions, comments, or concerns. And I'll take a quick cheers to the chat and get right back to it. Sean Strickland, guys. What does he do? Did you have Chat GPT write your script? First of all, I have no script, and second of all, I write all my thoughts independently. I'm not even looking at my my written notes, although I can pull them up if you want. I do it all myself. I appreciate you, Clear Kills, if it's your first time. But speaking extate, I can't even say the word extemporaneously. Excuse me, off the top of my head. It's what I always do on this show. So clear, unfiltered. I don't use fucking AI. I don't know how to use it. That's the one thing you will not get from me. I am au natural, my friend, and I'm very loquacious. I have a lot to say. So I hope that you enjoy it, but it's all off the dome, and I appreciate people being here. But Sean Strickland, guys, here's the things about him that stand out. Overall, he has got very solid takedown defense, but there are a couple things in the tape that I've seen. They give me some pause about maybe the decisions he makes tactically in terms of his grappling, right? We saw against Abus Magomedov, he tried to rush right back up to his feet and very nearly exposed his back to Abus. Abus just wasn't able to capitalize. He death gasped very quickly in that fight, trying to force the wrestling. And I think what Fluffy does a much better job of than a lot of other opponents is realizing in order to wrestle with guys, you need to get them thinking about something else in an MMA fight, right? And we watch back. I used to talk about Derek Brunson being one of my favorite examples because he's not that great a fighter in any one phase, but his ability to blend the wrestling with the striking would get a lot of guys off their rhythm. And Anthony Hernandez does a great job blending his rhythm of strikes, violent intentions with the grappling, with the takedown attempts, and he is not committed to any one takedown attempt. Much like Merab Dvalishvili, it gives you a lot of freedom in your wrestling to not care if you get the takedown or not. He shoots the takedown and doesn't care if he gets it. He wants to push you back. He wants to make you answer. He wants to make you think. He wants to put you in a position to respond, right? I tell my athletes as a coach, some guys, the way you break them is by making them do things over and over. You make them tired. You make them do repeated motions. Other guys, if you make them make 5 decisions, they will be mentally exhausted and not be able to keep up anymore. And Anthony Hernandez, that is what he does so well in how he applies pressure. He makes you make decisions. He makes you make a choice between this elbow landing or this punch landing or this knee landing to your body. Do you want to stand up if it comes at the cost of this uppercut coming through the guard? Do you want to get back to your feet if it costs you me wrapping up your wrist? And it's like everything that you do, you will pay a price. You will pay a price. In terms of pressure, in terms of energy, in terms of damage, he will make you pay something in order to achieve anything. You get nothing for free against Anthony Hernandez. That's what makes him special. That's why he's such a great fighter. So Sean Strickland is a guy that has what I call the simple basics, right? My coach used to say, keep it simple, keep it basic, the KISS method, keep it simple, stupid, right? That was one of the first things I was taught in wrestling. I'd say it half as a joke, but the simple basics win championships in every sport, right? There are cool moves. There are, things that are interesting techniques, things that you want to work on, stuff that are, you're passionate about it. But then there's the simple basic shit that you just need in order to be good, right? There's not many great wrestlers out there that can't wrestle a single leg or can't wrestle a double leg or can't wrestle a front headlock, can't hit a go behind. It's like there's certain baseline skills that you need. And Sean Strickland is a meat and potatoes, simple basics merchant. And people hate him for it. He sticks the jab out there. He uses that straight left hand a couple times, the right hand, but he likes to keep the jab out there, right? He likes to keep touching people, keep something in their face. Keep throwing it. Maybe throw it to the body. Maybe throw it to the head. But he's always working that jab out there to keep you having a problem to deal with. And then he'll throw the teep. And he'll sometimes be on the front foot and he'll sometimes be a little bit on the back foot. Strickland is one of these guys that doesn't do anything crazy, doesn't have a lot of showy offense, not very dynamic, doesn't knock a lot of people out, doesn't close the show very often. But he's won a lot of decisions. He fights a lot of people close, even good fighters, and he can surprise people when he snaps on a shot. He's one of these guys that kind of like the Diaz brothers, right? The Diaz brothers didn't throw particularly hard punches most of the time, right? They would touch, and just death by 1,000 cuts. But if they felt like they got you hurt or they felt like they had an opportunity, or they felt like you weren't giving them respect anymore, they would snap you with a big shot that you didn't see coming, and they could really jar you, right? I remember Nate Diaz rocked Conor McGregor because Conor McGregor did not respect what was coming back at him. And I think that when you look at, Sean Strickland and his opponents, look at the Israel Adesanya fight. I don't think Adesanya respected what Sean Strickland was doing until Sean Strickland had him doing the salsa, right? Had him doing the merengue, every dance you could think of, trying to recover. And then, Sean's finishing instincts are poor. He doesn't put guys away. He does not know most of the time how to get somebody out of there, but he touches people, he makes them answer, and he moves. So he's a hard guy to beat, right? If you don't have a consistent process, if you don't know exactly what you want to do, Sean Strickland's a very hard guy to beat. And I think that the way he beats Fluffy would be either landing a big shot to Fluffy's body that gets respect from Fluffy and that changes the dynamic of the fight, kind of like what happened to Merab against Petr Yan, or if Anthony is not able to get any takedowns going and Sean is able to just keep the fight in his preferred phase, if it's just a pure striking matchup for 25 minutes, I think Strickland will win, even if it's close. I think that he just has the tools and the process to do that. Simple basics, work the jab, work the teep to the body, keep your space, find the 1-2 when you can. He's very good at that. He is a guy that knows how to work the judges as well, winning close fights, winning close decisions. I think on the other side, Fluffy is a soul taker, right? If Fluffy wins this fight, I think Fluffy does it by taking over the fight as it goes on, by making him tired, and by mixing in damage. If you just try to wrestle Sean, he could deal with that. But the Duplessis fight, when you saw Duplessis start to damage Sean Strickland the first time that they fought each other, that is when his wrestling became much more effective. That is when Sean became much more complacent and willing to get pushed into the fence, willing to get held there for longer periods of time. And I think that against Fluffy, the consequences of doing that are even more severe because Dricus is a guy that hits very hard. He's a guy that's dangerous at distance, but he's also a guy that takes breaks at times in the clinch and that looks for his deep breath recovery when he's starting to wrestle you. And I just don't think that Fluffy's like that at all. I think Fluffy's the kind of guy that's looking to unload with damage when he presses you into the fence. So for me, this fight, the way to tell who's winning it is if Anthony Hernandez is getting this guy to the fence consistently, I think he's going to win the fight because I think he's got the better process on the fence. But I think that if Sean Strickland is able to keep this fight at distance, use his footwork, stay off of the fence line, I think that Sean Strickland can win and compete in this fight. So for me, big underdog price. It's probably a dog or pass situation. If you ask me who I'm favoring to win the fight, I would favor Fluffy. I think his process is a little bit better. I think there's a little bit more violence in his heart. I think that he's a little bit more motivated coming into this fight as well. He's never tasted gold. He's never been a millionaire. He wants all those things. Sean Strickland, he's a media personality. He's a star in his own right. The guy's got other avenues for making money outside of fighting now. And I think that Sean is still going to show up and give a good account of himself. But I just think if anybody's going to have more lingering doubt in their mind about going to get it late, about getting into a tough fight, I feel like it will be Strickland. I also want to just say, I did think that Sean kind of conceded the second Duplessis fight. I thought that Duplessis was going to finish Sean the second time around, but instead, Sean kind of got his nose rearranged and just conceded to losing that fight, took his foot off the gas pedal. His coach was telling him, you need to go do something. You need to go try something right now. There was injury rumors coming into that. So all of it's to say, the best version of Fluffy, I think, could beat the best version of Strickland, but I'm not sure that we're getting the best version of Fluffy either. The one thing I want to just say before, I turn to the chat or anything else is, I have heard some rumors that Fluffy's been dealing with some injuries in his recent training camps and pushing through it because they're big opportunities. And that's one thing that'll always keep me from, looking at a side at big chalk is like, I can't even rely on this guy getting to the cage safely. Oh my goodness. We might even have a quick special guest appearance from my guy. My guy JB just popped in the chat. So I'm going to send him this on X, and we'll see if we can get a special guest to round out the show. Let's go here to my guy. Is it Line Mover or Jewish better on the interwebs. Let's find out. It is Jewish better. My man, I'm sending you the link right now. So if you want to pop on, you are more than welcome, brother. Yeah, we're about to wrap up, but that's totally okay, my man. I'd love to have you to pop in. But all of it's to say this, guys. When I've got a fight like this, the way I would look at Fluffy, if I'm looking to get value, something like that, would probably be to look at the late round props. They're kind of nerfed on this fight, and I do think Sean's got good cardio. I just think the way Fluffy fights, his fights build over time. His violence quotient builds over time. He does a really good job, looking to extend guys and then putting them in worse and worse decisions, worse and worse positions. And I think that Sean Strickland, that's a lot of what he does as well. So I think more often than not, this fight's going to go late. I think more often than not, this fight's going to see minutes. I talked about if you're looking for DFS stacks, this might be one that makes sense. I'm normally a guy that's hesitant to stack, but you look at both these guys have shown they can put up big scores, and Sean Strickland has scored 50 plus fantasy points in 3 of his last losses, guys. Like, even when Sean Strickland loses, if it's over 5 rounds, he's normally putting up a very solid account of himself in terms of striking volume. And so I think for all those reasons, you got to give Sean some credence here as a dog. The judges love him. He's got a lot of fans on Instagram. The White House probably likes him. I'm sure Dana wouldn't mind, booking him on that card if available. Even though he's controversial, controversy creates cash, like Chael Sonnen said. So ultimately, guys, I think that this should be an absolute barn burner of a main event. I'm glad Fluffy Hernandez is getting a big opportunity to step up. I think he deserves that, but I don't think we can write off Sean Strickland. He's a guy that does have experience coming through in that underdog role. Both these guys have been extremely successful as, their betting, standard. If you look back, I'll go to my Twitter for a second. And if you guys don't follow me, I encourage everybody to give me a follow over at LiamPicksFights on social media. You can find me on all social media, but I'm most active on X. And I just wanted to point this out, guys, because I did tweet this out as well. Anthony Fluffy Hernandez as a UFC betting favorite, 9-2 for a 23.3% ROI. So very successful in terms of getting the win as a favorite, has turned you a nice profit. 7 out of those 9 wins as a favorite were via stoppage. So when he goes out there, he's favored to win. More often than not, he not only gets the job done, but gets the job done in a violent way inside the distance. And we look at how about Sean Strickland, guys? As a UFC underdog, he's 7-4 for a 71.2% ROI. Extremely respectable, very high producing ROI. 4 of those 7 wins, guys, were via decision. How about this? 2 out of 7 via split decision. Sean Strickland knows how to get it done, knows how to spring the upset, knows how to do it when it's close, knows how to do it via split decision. Should be an absolute banger of a main event. No one I'd rather discuss it with than my boy and yours, the Jewish better. Nobody do it better. How are you, my brother?
Ecstatic, bro. I don't think I felt this good in a long time. Just due to the fact of the matter is it's been 4 years, bro. 4 years since the UFC's come to Houston. They've been to Austin, Texas, been to Dallas, Texas, but
yeah, San Antonio too, where Reese had the ball shot heard around the world,
Yo, forgot about that, bro. Thank you for reminding me. I think, I don't even remember if Cheeto versus fucking Coria was after that, which was also in San Antonio. So it's like, yeah, bro, I'm excited, man. There's a lot of hometown guys on the card, at least Texas in general. Like I said, it's been a while. The first time I moved out here, bro, was the first card I ever, the day I moved out here was the first card I ever went to. Charles versus Chandler 1. Legend shit, followed that up with Lewis versus Gone in the front row, near the front row. Got to meet a lot of the fighters, Jose Aldo, Bobby Green, Bruce Buffer, all of those, legends. So it was great. And then Whitaker versus Adesanya, the last one that was here. That was my favorite one because I got to go with a bunch of friends. If you actually look up on YouTube, I posted the video a few times. You can watch it. We're having a blast. We're drinking shoeies and shit. The last time Tuivasa won a fight. So,
oh my God, dude, that's a real throwback right there. The last time Tuivasa won a fight, he beat Derek Lewis, right?
Yes, sir, in Houston,
Texas. Knockout. How about this? 5 units at plus 170. You got to know when to get on the fucking boat. You got to know when to get off the fucking boat, my man. You know that.
I was not as sharp as you at the time, and I played Derek Lewis, and you know what? I didn't even give a fuck. I was so happy, bro. I was just shooing it up.
Oh, dude. If there's anybody you want to lose to in this world, it's tied to Avasa, so you could just shoey it out, right? There's no shame. You just instantly get to roll it off, right? But my man, I know we got our local Texas correspondent, my man. If there's any matchup on here in particular you want to talk about, any of these Texas guys, any strong reads you got, the floor is yours, my brother.
Word. We just talked about Fluffy versus Strickland. I thought, I think that's a great fucking main event just for a card in general, like fight wise to watch. I think Fluffy's probably gonna win. Line wise, I'm not like super confident, but yeah, I think he's probably going to use patient pressure to win a decision. He could, possibly get a sub. He's got those, we talk about it, the reverse katagatames, the anaconda chokes. He blends that in so well. He's not the best back taker, though, in my opinion. We've seen him fall off for position quite a couple of times.
You muted yourself, buddy. But also, he's a better mounter than a back taker, I would say. He's almost one of those guys that prefers to like come out on top with 2 knees around the belly than he does to come out on a guy's back. He likes to be in that wrestling ride type of position.
My bad, bro. I thought I heard something at my door. My fault.
No, you good, man. My guy Joe said, JB, the international man of mystery. I fucking love it.
Yeah, no, I know. I like that one. Like, I could go run quick through this because I don't want to take up too much of your time. I think Jeff Neal is going to get the job done. I like the Austin native to get it done probably early, but decision maybe live at plus 800. Dan Ige plus 195, I think, has got to be the side there. I'm not super confident that he's going to win, but I think he's the value side. Delija versus, yes, for sure. I actually think that line's fucking absurd, brother. A guy who literally, and tell me this, Danny gave round 3 at plus 1,600. I think you could make worse sprinkles, bro.
I completely agree with you. I do think pace is a big part of that read where we know that Danny Ige can win round 3s and we're not really, sold on the other side because I've seen Mel Costa fall off in those round 3s before.
Yeah. Could even be a sub, bro. Our boy, we always talk about her. Our boy, Steve Mean Machine Garcia. He was about to lock it up, bro.
No, dude. Steve literally choked him unconscious and then beat up his carcass, dude. It's one of the most violent things I've ever seen for no reason in the UFC.
You're the man, bro. I love talking about it. Spivac versus Delija. I don't really have a strong read. I thought Spivac by Kimura plus 4,000 could be a decent look. A little crazy wacko, but it's fucking heavyweight MMA, and Delia's literally lost 2 times by key lock, so why not? Like,
you could do worse, right?
Yeah.
I totally agree. I think Spivac's live by sub, man. I put that in my article anyway. Just like, how is he going to win this fight if not with multiple takedowns or one takedown to a sub?
I think Delija is probably going to spark him early, though, truth be told. If I had to just make a read, like, they just don't like the reactions, and I think Delija really fucking hits pretty hard early. So if he gets that around 1, yeah, but it's going to be rough, brother.
Yeah, we largely see that one the exact same. Like, I think Spivac has like a very clear path to winning, but I'm not betting it because I just have visions of him getting knocked out in embarrassing fashion. Yeah. He's one of those guys that you can't really trust him, but like the matchup feels like it's not impossible. Like, I've seen that guy get out grappled by Capoloza and fucking other guys,
Yeah, he's not got the worst wrestling himself, but it's just like, you get put on your back, and then against a different style of takedowns too. Like, we know Spivac got that judo sambo, in his back pocket.
Yeah, dude, he's got the trips, and like low key can be a really awkward way to deal with somebody in the wrestling. Like that, when I talked about Gurule earlier on the show, that was one thing I mentioned. It's just like, he does have those like kind of weird upper body throws that when he gets people down, he gets the dominant positions a lot of times because like he throws them to the dominant position. Shout out to Uncle Weezy as well. I heard him talking about it earlier. The judo background, very beneficial for landing in dominant positions. He's right about that.
Right. Look at Luana Santos versus Melissa Croton in round 3. She was going to take over that round 3 if she didn't get, she couldn't get out though. Because it's just, you land in such a secure position, especially those judokas. Now it's harder. We saw Rousey You know, how do you get to that clinch? It's hard when you don't have the striking, you don't have the wrestling to back it up. That's why fucking Islam is so beautiful, bro. And Khabib is so beautiful because they will shoot those doubles. And then, yeah, maybe you defended that in camp, right? You worked so hard on defending the lower bodies. And then they fucking hit you with an Osoto Gari. And you're like, brother, why? How? You know?
Yes. A complete wrestling game. You have to be able to wrestle people at the legs and wrestle people at the body. And something that as a coach, I want to implement more in terms of like how our guys understand wrestling, because it's a missed opportunity when you get in on a shot and then don't work your way up to the body. If you can't finish at the legs, hey, we're just getting started here, right? That's what chain wrestling's all about. Let's work up to the body and see what we can do from there.
And
Speaking of wrestling,
versa.
look at these two fucking guys, man. How are these guys going to wrestle? It should be awesome.
Yeah, similar record. Like I got the younger guy in Harrell. It's short notice. Like he's definitely like we talked about this a little bit before. He's gonna get hit most likely in round one. But I've watched a few fights of him. I think the guy's a very solid prospect. I'm actually high on Harrell, so it's not even just a play on Harrell. It's also a fade on Jacoby Smith, who I think slows down later in his fights. I think just the trajectory of cardio. Maybe you want to like find yourself a live bet. I don't like to get too greedy with those, especially I'm gonna be in the arena. So I can't sit there on my phone. I might not even get fucking service, So I'm gonna have to get in pre. I think his 2-3 props also, like we talked about this privately a little bit. I don't hate it, bro. Or just anything cardio based. I like to look toward that end. So yeah, Smith. I guess it's on paper, or it's not on paper. It's on the film. We've seen it versus Nico Price. So yeah, like I said, we talked about this shit. I'm agreeing with you on that one.
Yeah, man. That brings us, of course, to the talk of the town, the people's main event.
This
a middleweight shit fight.
I don't even want to talk about this one, bro. I think right now, as the current odds, I think
you don't care about Shiner, Texas's own Zachary Reese.
Not in the slightest bit, brother. I remember that dude at my gym was telling me, he's like, Zach Reese, remember? And I fucking bet against him because of him. I was like,
what was that, Bakoev? That was the Bakoev fight?
No, it was Cody Brundage when he
slammed him. All I had was the under 1.5 there.
Beautiful. I had Brundage
awesome,
round 1
awesome,
KO
man.
plus 800 fucking in the arena. Beautiful. Yeah, I think
unders
are good here in my opinion, although it could get sketchy. I think that Reese would be the money line side, although I don't fucking think he's that good. I just don't know how you trust Pereira at minus 175 personally, albeit I think he's the better fighter and should probably win here.
Yeah, man. Like, I feel like his resume is like clearly head and shoulders better, but he's just got no momentum. Like it's a little bit hard to get behind him. Even at the best of times, he was kind of an idiot, but it's kind of crazy. We always talk about like Yanni the Greek, when in doubt, zoom out, right? He's 8-3 over his last 11 fights, but he's lost 3 in a row. So everybody's like, this guy's buns. He's terrible. He's garbage. And it's like, he lost to Fluffy, Abus Magomedov, and Kyle Dawkins, who are all not that bad. Like, none of them are like, blow your hair back. Like, this is a fucking world beater except Fluffy. But it's like, those other guys, they're like solid guys. Like, guys that I would say are at parity or maybe even better than Zach Reese, honestly. So that's why, for me, it just feels like, I don't really know what to make of this fight. Slight lean towards Pereira and just being better at martial arts, but
I like violence.
I do too, man. That's my lean on that fight is like somebody's getting finished there. But I kind of just feel like the thing about Pereira that always gets slept on is like every 5 fights, he just submits somebody easily. And like, I feel like if he hurt Zach Reese, like, would it surprise me if he just jumped on this guy's neck and the fight was over? Like,
yeah, not even no hooks. He does that. He's probably
the Zaleem Imadaev, bro.
Oh,
the power slap dude. That's where Dana got the idea for power slap, and people forgot that. That's where he got it. He kissed the hand and whacked him.
Got him. Yeah, revenge,
dude. People that weren't watching Pandemic MMA fucking missed out.
He went for that versus Chaos Williams too, and versus Michal Oleksiejczuk. The no hook for a naked choke.
And by the way, this is the thing. A win over Michal Oleksiejczuk and Andre Petroski, both of them like via dominant finish, that's way better than anything Zach Reese has ever done. Like, he's literally going to decision with Jose Medina in like cardiac arrest fashion. Just, I don't think he's that good, I think he's okay, but I just think he's like painfully okay, All right. Do you have any thoughts on this one, man? This is another super volatile fight. Big line move.
50-50 to me, bro. 50-50 for me, bro. I think Chitty at range, if he doesn't wilt, doesn't get cracked, with those awkward shots. I don't like the defense from Carlos Leal either. It works when you're not getting knocked out, but maybe that's recency bias. It's crazy because the guy never got KO'd, and then, perfect shot from Muslim Salikov puts him out, and now we're questioning the durability, which I think you have to, This just because of his style of defense. Knees up the middle, in the clinch. I think Chitty's going to blast him there. I think at range he could compete. Carlos Leal has to be at the perfect range for him to win this fight. So I think it's dog or pass, bro. I lean Chitty here.
Yeah, dude. And Chitty's also a Texas guy, which I think is something from a narrative standpoint, like why they put this together. Maybe try and do Chitty a favor. He's got a huge size advantage here. The one thing I did want to note, though, is like, you don't want to, call a fighter a quitter or something like this, right?
Yeah.
It takes tremendous courage to get in there. But the way I normally describe it is guys that have a little more wilt in them, right? Like guys that just like when shit goes sideways, harder for them to get back on track, to mentally refocus, to not let things go all the way bad, right? Like it's like the train's starting to derail, and then instead of like, all right, let's try and get the wheels back on, it's like, well, fuck, we're just going all the way overboard, tits up, like everything's done. It's like when Chitty Njokuani is doing good, oh, he's doing so good, man. Like he's just flowing, everything's beautiful, the kicks are unreal, like everything looks pretty. It's beautiful, right? But whenever things start to go sideways, it's like, oh, train's going off the tracks. Like we are getting a whole derailment, man. People are gonna die. There will be fire. Like, and it's just the way I view it is like Leal, you have to kill the man. And last time out, Muslim Salikov killed the man, right? I think Chitty's capable of killing the man, no doubt. But it's like if you don't kill the man, he's gonna be on your ass all night, making you answer questions. And Chitty just doesn't seem like a guy who wants to be pressed like that. So I feel like somebody's getting served in this one, because if Chitty doesn't get him out of there, I just think he's going to fold under pressure, man. Like Leal is nonstop with the pressure unless you can just get respect. And so like Renat started to get a little bit of respect as the fight went on. Yeah. But I feel like the thing I like about Leal coming into this fight is that he has had a couple fights in the past where he tried to go out there and wrestle aggressively. He kind of got away from that. He just got knocked out, right? I feel like if I'm his coach, if this guy's got, two brain cells to rub together, they're fucking wrestling like their life depends on it. Just to get
it versus he did it versus what's his name?
Sadabu.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and dude, that a lot of people, thought that Sadabu won the first fight very cleanly. I agree with that. The second time that they fought, it was a split decision, and a lot of people, I went back and watched, like, with the live community chat, like, still playing. They were like, what the fuck? Wrong guy won. Like, blah, blah. Like, a lot of people watching live thought that Leal deserved that decision. So I think that Leal is one of these guys that, like, looks like he's way undersized here, but he's a guy that gets on your ass, and if he's in boxing range, he's also in takedown range. So I feel like Chitty early or Leal probably wins the fight. And, dude, the other thing I have to say is I wanted to bet Leal sub, because last time he fought, I bet it at like 23-1 or something, and then he died instantly. And now it's like 7-1, and I was like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like, I can't even believe that, dude.
I know.
Just disgusting. Like, Chitty's so willing to take an exit on the ground that they're like, sorry, we're not even giving you a chance. They're from the Charleston School of Self-Defense, dude. They couldn't even let us get close to a good number on Leal by sub. Unbelievable.
It's just because he's a 1-4 to the sub, but that number is fucking piss. He is a brown belt in BJJ though.
Dude, that's what I'm like. Honestly, Chitty's not a bad grappler. He's just a guy that when things go wrong on the ground, they're going all the way wrong.
He can definitely get up. I think he could definitely defend. Like he's solid. Big metrics advantage too. I don't have a strong read on this fight. I think Ode could snipe him early, slows down the later the fight goes. Idiris, has some power. He likes to spin a lot, which I'm not a huge fan of. I think he can mix in the takedown. Seeing him do it in the regionals, albeit versus lower level competition. His last loss was a tough one, but he was a -500 there, Liam, and now he's a -130. Market overcorrection. And versus a tough opponent too. He got finished too. A lot of people sometimes overrate those finished losses. A lot of people are on Ode here this week. I think Idiris wins, bro. Like I said, I think you get cracked early. Idiris sub +700 against a guy who's 5-4 to the sub with literally probably some of the worst defensive jiu-jitsu I've seen in MMA, Liam. Like, honest to God, I don't want to shit on the guy, but he's a purple belt in BJJ. I don't really like offensively. Maybe he's got tricky stuff. Like he probably a purple belt in the room, but in the UFC, I don't know if that shit's gonna cut it, bro. And Idiris trains with good, solid people like Asu. He's very strong as well. I can even see him clipping Ode on the feet, right? But it's just the numbers game. I see the sub all the way. Maybe even a knee up the middle, bro. Last time, my man, I think either of these guys catch that knee, but last time my man Ode was in Houston, he got flying knee KO'd by Manel Cop. So maybe he wants his revenge here, or maybe it happens again. So I'm very hyped to see this fight.
You remember Idris hit that beautiful jump knee on Roybert Echeverria, put him out cold.
Very good call.
On the Ultimate Fighter. Yeah, so
that's a very good call.
Dude, that's, I think, his best win outside of what he had on the Kazakh regional scene. Like, that was his best win on the Ultimate Fighter. And, to your point, bro, if you put Joseph Morales in there with Ode Osbourne, I don't know if I'm ruffling feather. I think he submits him with a shocking quickness. Like, I think it's first frame, gets him out of there on the mat. Joseph Morales is a fucking very legit grappler. And Ode Osbourne, that's the one thing that's not good about his game, right? Like, Jafel Fila went in there and cut through him like butter. Asu Amabayev went in there and just position for position dominated him, right? So Ode, to your point, he makes really bad defensive choices in the grappling that get him submitted. And it's normally from desperation. Like, he knows if I stay on the ground, this is going to get worse. So he tries to explode up, shows his back, shows his neck, and gets tapped. And I think Idris has a chance to do that. I think, to your point, he has a chance to connect with the chin. And I think his pace and cardio is better. But I also have to acknowledge Ode fucking hit Gurule so hard that he like flew off his feet, dude. Like, he has good timing. He saw that he was on one foot and just caught him with a straight shot that literally elevated him. So Ode packs a punch. He's a serious hitter.
Especially in round one.
Dude, that's it. 7.5 minutes of Ode being fucking dangerous, and then he starts to unravel. Also, I wanted to just point back to the Charles Johnson fight. I forgot to make this note before. Fought him to a close split decision. But there was a 5-minute nut shot break in the second round where Ode's like recovering
Smart
so
man.
much. And dude, he came back out there and he was just like, you know what? I'm good to go. I feel like without that foul, he would have gassed out bad against Charles.
It's very fair points. Yeah, he's past to win this fight, brother. But I just, I thought maybe you snagged up that early value. Good for you, But I think at this point, it's for me favorite or pass. And I think the sub prop is the way to go.
One other thing I got to mention as we move to the next fight, my man, because I hadn't looked at this before. I'm seeing the fight not to go the distance as low as -125. And Ode Osbourne is a guy that I think you got to just acknowledge, like, most of his fights, like, for and against, he's going to put himself in dangerous positions. He's going to put the other guy in dangerous positions. He's had some of the most remarkable GTDs in the history of the UFC. Yeah. Like, the Usyk fight, kind of crazy that GTD'd. The fight with what's his name? Lazy Boy. Insane that fight GTD'd. Also, shout out to Elijah Bennett, 1999 in the chat. I'll cheers to that, my brother. Appreciate you big time. Kind words as well. He says Alibi round 2-3 sub has value, and he said nice things about recognizing the reads. Fucking appreciate you, Elijah. Much shout out to you, my man. Ode round 1, good way to get in on that side. If you're looking at it that way, I think that the late takeover for Idiris is a possibility here. I think the fight not to go kind of covers a lot of equity on both of these guys. And I also just like in general, looking at, okay, we've got Ode had a couple fights that went to decision that probably shouldn't have. And Alibi's last fight, I mentioned if I thought he lost the fight, like basically I do my pre-fight like betting strategy. I was like, if Morales wins this fight, he's probably going to submit him. He's probably going to submit him early. Morales just that's what he does well in a fight, right? So now I look at this fight. Does Ode have the ability to snatch up submissions off his back? Yeah. Does Ode not great, but dude, even that Lazy Boy fight, like if he had made 2 small adjustments in the triangle, he finishes it. Yeah. Right. And he made the wrong adjustments, he loses it. But you just look, it's like, does he throw up subs? Does he get aggressive there? Yes. Will he go for big attacks on the feet, try and knock this guy out? Absolutely. Sure. Will Alibi be throwing shit all night? Yes, like that's just the way he fights. He throws shit all the time. And then will he mix it up on the ground? Is he willing to go there? Yeah. So it just seems to me like I lean towards this fight ending inside the distance. I could see Alibi winning by working him to a decision, but I think you capture a lot of both guys win equity with fight not to go, And then you're not laying the chalk on a debutant. And, then if he gets folded up, I thought Gurule did some decent work against Ode. right? And then he got absolutely clock cleaned in the
He won the
second.
first
So it's just
round
like,
for sure.
yeah, and dude, he got that big takedown to
Takedown, yeah.
a dominant side control. So
Yeah.
Ode can be had on the ground. We know that. But if it's up on the feet, bro, he's always live.
Yeah, he's just a very big flyweight. 34 years old. I don't see him improving though, so that's the reason I'm thinking Idiris.
Yeah, dude, he's got a cigar
I'm glad
company.
I talked this about you, because
my man.
And he's very active too on social media. Now that you said that, like he seems to have a lot going on.
Cigar company, a podcast. My man's got his irons in many fires.
Yeah,
I feel like this other dude, Idiris, is just fucking hanging out with Asu Amabayev and training fucking sun up to sundown, dude.
Facts. Interesting fight here, bro.
Dude, this is literally the Texas regional scene title. I was saying they should give him an honorary Fury belt for this.
Hilarious, bro. Like literally. This is a good fight, bro. I think the line is a bit crazy. I predict Coria to win. Coria could finish him. Gurule's chin is starting to like look a little bit more suspect as we go. The drop by a jab to our guy Aguilar. He's
T-Rex arms Aguilar.
But to me, this line is absurd, bro. Plus 350 on a guy who, this is just recency bias. It's a market overcorrection, and a guy who was plus 300 to Paris Moran, who was plus 300 to fucking Alessandro Costa, and now he's a big minus number. And then the same thing on the other end for Gurule. He was a minus 200 favorite against fucking Osbourne. Yeah, he dropped the ball, but like you said, he was doing good in that first round. So to me, brother, this is a close fight. Gurule, pressure, takedowns, better wrestling. I think he could slow down Alden. Alden slowed down in fights where, guys fight at that style. The Trujillo fight, which if I'm not mistaken, Gurule beat Trujillo. Yeah, and I mentioned that on Parlay Madness, by the way. I'm sure that guy watched because I don't think anybody else was mentioning that.
Bro, I swear, I also mentioned that. I sent that on Patreon 2 nights ago.
Anybody but besides LiamPicksFights, bro. So he probably follows
I'm a dog.
Yeah. Well,
I didn't bet shit yet, but we talked about the money line earlier in the week,
well,
so I know you've been all over it, my man.
And exactly, and the other reason I liked him was because we've discussed this before. This guy was what, plus 200 to win versus Ode by sub, or like plus 300 to win versus Ode by sub? All right, yeah, Ode is a mark to the sub, but like how much could you, And then he wasn't plus 2,700 against Aguilar, and he submitted fucking Jacob Silva, a teammate of this guy. He's gotten arm triangle chokes, and specifically what I was going to say is there's something that we talked about a little while back. This guy had an interview, or it was Brandon Roy Valle who had the interview, who trains with him. He said, quote me if I'm wrong, he said he's the best he's faced. Yeah, Elijah Bennett in the chat. Very sharp, my guy. You're crushing it here. So I don't hate the looks whatsoever. I think that's a great price, bro. Plus 2,700. What are we talking about? 4% implied to be profitable? That's fucking insane. Michael Sears submitted this guy. He was putting a back take by Costa. He's been grappled in these fights, and he's got a couple quick. I do think he's improving the jiu-jitsu, guys. Pineda's not one to give out a purple belt to just anybody, but things happen in a mixed martial arts fight. And if this guy Gurule to win, I think he's going to have to get takedowns. What the fuck? What the fuck am I missing? Crazy.
Dude, it's hilarious because before I was like, if you were going to play Gurule here, why wouldn't you just ladder the takedowns and take the sub prop? That's literally what I said earlier on the show, because I was just like, if he's not getting takedowns, he's going to get fucked up. We can all pretty much agree on that. Like, his striking's okay. It's functional. It's just not going to be the winning ingredient in like a high-level UFC fight, right? Alden Coria, I talked about it in his last fight. I thought Costa had a chance to submit him. But I was like, if Costa doesn't submit him, if Costa doesn't take him down, he's getting knocked the fuck out. Like, I was just like, you just don't want to give this guy 15 minutes of opportunities on the feet. He's going to make you pay for that. He's going to hurt you. And we've seen guys on the regional scene twist him up, put him in a literal twister, hold him on his back, take his back, finish him from the back. Like, again, it's been a little while. He's gotten better. But I just think that you've got to say, like, if Gurule has a brain, if he's got coaches that care about him, they're going to tell him, brother, wrestle like your life depends on it and try and submit this kid. Try and make him tired, break him down, and tap him. And I think that's the way that he wins, right? So when you look at a fight like this, I don't think Gurule wins, so I can't really like enthusiastically get behind the price. But it's like the sub price, you need to be right about that very infrequently to make money on those shots long term. And it's just like, it doesn't track. Like, I think most of his win equity in this fight is the submission, right? Like, could he win a decision by getting a couple dominant positions? Sure. But it's like the next most likely, as I see it, is the sub. So it's got to be much more closely correlated with a plus 3XX than it is 27-1. It's just like, I saw that and I was very surprised. So I might have to blow it 10 or $15, $20.
It shows
like,
you
that'd be crazy, but
yeah, it shows
win
you that
5 units. Like,
I learned a lot from betting from you, bro.
my man.
It just shows, bro, like how I start to think about these fights differently over time.
Dude, every fight presents different opportunities, right? So, like, last time out, we talked about Alden Coria as a dog, but now he's not a dog anymore. So we're going to talk about the last time. It's like, no, fuck. We'll look at this time and see what we can make of this board. Gurule money line side, but it's like, I don't really love the money line if he's not getting the takedown. So let's look at the takedowns and then let's look at the sub. But to your point, man, like, they're almost forcing your hand at a certain point because it was plus 2XX. And I thought to myself, I was like, man, that's a pretty big price on Gurule. He might get to plus 3 and, who knows? Almost every dog I've been looking at on this card, their price has been improving over the course of the week. And that could mean I'm dead wrong, or it could mean the parlay liability is adding up. So that's why if you're an underdog bettor, like we often are, sitting on our hands, man, being patient and waiting for our opportunity to get in at the best price, Lord will.
I think plus 350 or better, which it's sitting at on Bet Online right now, is perfectly fine.
I think that's reasonable, man. Like, clearly the side or pass, right? Like, passing, $1 saves $1 earned. But if you were saying, like, I need to have a money line side in this fight, I just don't see where the edge is on Correa at 80% implied when we know that he could be wrestled and grappled in terms of his regional footage.
Beautiful. Bro, I like this fight. I think Jocelyn Edwards is going to wrestle her up if she can. Crisper on the feet. I think Cornolle maybe has the advantage in the clinch. And yeah, bro, appreciate that, man. Like, appreciate all the comments. Started here with my boy. Well, not started, but basically putting me into the, betting, starting to get myself a little smarter. That started right here on this show, bro. Right here with my man Liam. So, yeah, just shout out to the boy. Actually, the one who introduced me to the guy Lucrative as well. So, there's that. If you guys didn't know that tidbit, you go back maybe and find the episode. Pretty fucking dope. So, yeah.
I love it,
shout
man.
out the boy
I
Liam,
absolutely
bro.
love it.
And
always got your back, G.
Yes. Little Narrative Nation here, bro. Carnival was this week. The Panamanians are still celebrating this shit right now. I think Jocelyn Edwards is going to get this one done, bro. Minus 300, bro. Come on, brother. Come on, brother.
Hey, you know what we both know? Carol Hosa is allergic to finishing fights. Dude, she attempted 3 takedowns and got 2 takedowns for 10 plus minutes of control time.
Disgusting.
If this is not the time for Jocelyn Edwards to exact her revenge, I don't know when would be. Go out there, take this chick to the ground, beat her up instead of just holding on for chokes, and then when she starts to get fatigued, take the choke.
That's
Please,
how you think
Jocelyn,
it's going to come through, right?
Please.
Like she has to add the ground and pound? Because Cornelle's kind of tough. She'll switch it around.
Cornelle's a tough woman. She just can't get off the bottom for love nor money. All she could do is be physical on bottom and try hard. I don't think she's very technical. So I think if Jocelyn Edwards is smart, she gets the top position, she makes this girl suffer for a while, and then goes for the choke and gets it. So
she
give me
reversed
Jocelyn
her in that
Edwards.
first fight, but I don't think that shit's happening again.
Dude,
bro.
and Jocelyn was fighting like a complete bonehead. Like, I felt like Jocelyn fought a horrible fight and still clearly won the fight. And it's like, if she goes out there and builds on the momentum she's had in her last couple of fights, it's not like Priscilla Cachoeira is easy to get out of there. She's notoriously difficult to get out of there, but just lacks the skills. She fucked her up, dude. So Nora, tough as an old leather boot, right? Never been finished in MMA. But I think that's why the numbers are where they're at. And it's a tale of 2 fighters, right? Her last fight, she got absolutely dominated by Carol Hosa. Jocelyn Edwards, her last 3 fights, she has absolutely dominated these women and not even let them hang around in the octagon, just completely close the show on all of them. So she's been treating people accordingly. She's 30 years of age. She's the bigger fighter. I think she's the better grappler. I think she's more motivated. Give me Jocelyn Edwards, man. And I agree with you that the finish is live. I think late finish is very
I didn't even say
here.
that, but I do think it is.
Oh, shit.
Well,
Dude,
we talked about it early in the week.
Oh, yeah. I'm conflating our earlier conversation, but dude, it just seems like another
I agree.
opportunity.
36 years old too. I don't think Cornelle's getting any better. And actually, one thing I don't know if you mentioned in their first fight, she had a rear naked choke attempt. She was under the chin. She just couldn't finish it. Maybe it was the sweat, a little things. Obviously, think she's also getting better. Jocelyn Edwards is, and Cornolle wasn't even fighting the hands. She wasn't fighting the hands, bro.
Dude, it's no quitting Cornolle, but I've always said there's no tough guying a rear naked choke. If you get a real rear naked choke and you have applied solid pressure, they're going to sleep like anybody else. So Jocelyn Edwards, put her to sleep.
I think she could armbar her too low key, bro. I really do.
As long as she snaps it in half, because I don't think Nora's gonna tap. But
really,
hey, let's just break that thing in half if we have to. Snap, tap, or nap, and
could be like a mounted triangle too, bro. She might triangle her. I could see it. I swear.
I love it. Written in the stars, brother. Tiny Tempa is playing in the background right now.
Watch it just be a round one fucking KO for Edwards. Wow.
That's why ITD plus 360, my man.
Beautiful. Ramirez versus Puna. I think this is pretty 50-50 too. I lean Puna. I know a lot of people are on Ramirez sub, but like, all right, maybe he just didn't expect the front choke attempts from Varetnikov, you know? Like, or he just wasn't so worried about it. Now, if you come in here with like a better IQ game, but it's definitely a super worry. Both these guys, super low volume on the feet. Puna, better wrestler, going to decide where it is. I think he lands the bigger shots in a lower volume fight. Both these guys gas too, in my opinion. Slow down quite a bit. Puna maybe a little more, maybe though, but like Ramirez slows down, bro. That fucking fight against Themba was not a good look. He looked fucking lost, and I don't think we could trust him. Yep. I think Puna
and Max Griffin, like he slowed down in that one too.
Yeah. I like GTD here, bro. Plus 175. I think is a good look. Puna decision, shit like that. If you're on the Ramirez side, I think you probably just look toward like sub, if anything, but I'm not feeling it at the number.
I couldn't agree more. I thought the numbers kind of sucked. I do think that if you like Ramirez, like his sub is probably the vast majority of his win equity. I don't think that it's outside the realm that he gets a decision here, but honestly, like I just think Puna's got a way better process. Like he is more effective fighting for the top position. So I just think like that's a good skill to have in MMA. It's harder to take down Puna, in my opinion, than it is Ramirez. And like physically, I just think Ramirez has been outmanned before in the UFC like multiple times. Court McGee was just picking him up, turning him sideways, taking him down, kind of disrespecting his grappling game. I felt like Demba Garimbo like never was threatened in the grappling in that fight, like just dominated him physically in upper body wrestling exchanges for huge portions of the fight. And like nothing happened. Like basically Temba was able to do nothing and win. And it was just like Puna, if you let him do nothing, I think can functionally do nothing and win. And I also feel like that Baeza fight, he doesn't get any credit for. I've heard people saying like he did nothing in that fight. It's like he set records for how much output he threw in that fight. It's just that Baeza took like a life-changing beating.
It was, I think the damage, like he wasn't like really damaging him.
He wasn't loading up on anything, right? But it's just like, that's what I mean when I say process. Like at 170, he can just beat somebody for 15 minutes, which seemed like it was a hard thing for him to do at 185. And his wrestling at 185, like you're trying to wrestle guys who are fucking huge and it's really difficult, right? Whereas you try and wrestle these guys at 170 and Puna's way stronger than them and, you know, has a D3 All-American wrestling background and those takedowns are coming and these guys can't get back up so easy. And when they do, he's riding them tough. And it's just, that feels to me like a viable path to victory, knowing what I've seen from Ramirez before, which is like him getting controlled physically and just dominated physically. So I think if it's a striking match, you know, it's a little bit more volatile. I don't know exactly what to expect there, but if Puna is well coached and well schooled here, he should know to avoid getting into guillotine exchanges. He should know how to re-penetrate the hips if he does get into them. And if he wrestles this guy away from the fence, I feel like he will take him down and control him on the mat. So yeah, ultimately respect to both guys. Ramirez is a New York guy, reinvented himself, came back from a lot of hard fights and health scares and everything else. But I feel like Puna 3-0 at 170 and really hasn't given me a reason to doubt him yet in this weight class. So the Varetnikov fight wasn't the cleanest performance, but I've seen way grosser performances from Ramirez in this weight class. So it's just, for me, Puna is the side at plus money, and I think it should be a fun fight.
Yeah, Reese from the Bronx, if I'm not mistaken. The Dirty
Yeah,
DX.
yeah.
But he also
Dude,
was
tough kid.
a long-time Texas guy, too. And he left Texas. And we don't
Yes,
like that.
to go to
We don't
Valley
like
Flow
that.
Striking Academy though. Valley Flow
Yeah.
Striking, they're quite good. So
Yeah, that's probably a good
dude, he got the supplementation up. Do you remember that clip
Definitely
went viral actually of Ramiz yelling, "He fucking ruined his career." When Jeff Neal got knocked out by Carlos Prates. He was talking about Safe Saud. So trouble in paradise. I was listening to Jacoby Smith's interview this week, and they were talking about all the strife between different gyms in Texas. I was like, damn, we need to get our guy Jewish Better on the beat. Go gym to gym and find out all the grievances between these guys. They're all talking shit in the media.
If it wasn't such a big state, I'd try, bro.
There you go. Exactly. You'd have to fucking spend 25 hours in the car to go get word from 5 different gyms.
I know, bro. Shit.
Any thoughts here, man? This is a weird one too.
Yeah, it's tough, bro. Like, Rowe is just a hard guy to trust. But I don't know how you bet JPL here at -2XX. This has to be a dog or pass for me once again. I don't know. No proven wrestling from JPL in general. Definitely no proven wrestling at 170. He's got very slick jiu-jitsu. His father is the former coach, I believe, of Hoist Gracie when he was in his prime. This guy's been training jiu-jitsu. Yeah. This guy's been training jiu-jitsu since he was 3 years old, Liam. 500 jiu-jitsu matches before the age of 20. Now, when you talk about UFC debut, I don't like that. But when you're telling me you got 500 BJJ matches before the age of 20, I think that's great. Guys like, Faraz talk about that. Just look at a guy like Islam Makhachev, 200 judo matches or sambo matches before he even took his first MMA fight. I think that's super important. So any MMA or aspiring MMA fighters out there, go into those jiu-jitsu matches early. Now, Phil Rowe, on the other end, he waited a very long time. Shout out to him, though. He said, I'm going to take this, and start to compete in these grappling matches. Black belt in BJJ himself. The problem is the takedown defense, brother. And like I said, the lack of urgency to get up off his back. Big worry. He starts fights slow. He can be hurt on the feet as well. But same could be said for JPL, bro. This guy's been KO'd. Spike Carlisle, very small, like 145er type style. Put him out. Jacoby Jones was another one.
Mercy stoppage, dude. He was busted up, dude. Looked like the victim of a violent crime.
It was a weird one because it's like, he just let the fight go, and he just stopped it when it was like ground.
It was a very weird stoppage, but dude, I literally think he was like, mercy. We don't need to see more of that.
It was nasty, bro. And it's like, what if Rowe gets on top, Rowe's got some weapons too. He's big power, straight punches up the middle. So Lebosnoyani is clean, though, bro. He's very clean on the feet. Good body work. Very good kicks. I think his weapons could work, but it's like, how do you get into range? And if you're not getting the wrestling off, this is a striking match. I don't think he's -200. So, yeah, he could look -200. I don't trust him to look -200, though.
Yeah, dude, this is another one where if you press me for the pre-fight side, I'd say Rowe. I almost want to watch 2.5 minutes of the fight to see if we're going to get an effort from Rowe. It just feels to me like his last 2 fights have been pretty uninspiring. But when you look at, how I would look to play him, live entry is a consideration, but also the pre-flop round 2 and 3, like that's how Rowe's won fights at this level in the UFC. When you look at JPL, I feel like the way he loses this fight is by, deciding to get a little bit egocentric, not going to the grappling, not trying to wrestle this guy, being willing to stay at distance with him. And I feel like that might work when he's very fresh early and he can move and be bouncy and use footwork. But Rowe has a style that kind of just, if you don't continue to press him, then he can come back into the fight at any time, right? If you're and you could just blank him for 15 minutes, he ain't doing shit, right? Like there's nothing he can do about that. But if you give him windows, if you give him space, he will take it. He will start to go and start to throw and start to unload offense. I do think that's a possible way that he gets back into this, and the numbers are big. So I'd rather look at that, put a small play out there and hope for a big return than to take a big risk on either one of these guys. I feel like
that's
both
fair.
of them offer, clear vulnerabilities, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, a lot of people on this decision and shit, I'm like, I'm not really feeling it, bro. I could see it, but numbers-wise, it's not like a value to me. I could be quick on this one, bro. I don't even really want to talk. Well, I do want to talk about these, but I also want to smoke, bro. So I think Yadi's going to fucking smoke this guy, bro. What do you think?
I think the same thing. Let me just ask you, do you think I'm crazy for thinking that he is the superior jiu-jitsu player? Maybe not in terms of technique, but in terms of like scrambling ability and like who's more likely to win this fight via sub, I think Valle checks both those boxes.
I think Leavitt could have a sub path. I don't think it's going to happen, though, just because offensively he's good, but he gets reversed. I don't think he's the most physical, even at 145. Del Valle's a fucking tank. That counts for something. Defensively, I think Del Valle is better. I think he could snatch his neck up in a guillotine. He's working with Dorian Oliveras as well. I don't know if you saw that. I think that's a good person to be getting that work in with. So, yeah, I do too, bro. Legit black belt is Yachty.
Yeah, man. And the thing for me, I kind of lean towards the ITD. I lean towards the sub. I think if you want to pivot, you maybe look at the ends by sub 2-1. You know, it's very similar to the Valle sub, gives you some of that Leavitt exposure. But again, I would also be thinking about the Valle ITD. I think he's capable of knocking out Leavitt, but the way Leavitt normally loses fights is he forces a scramble and then gets out scrambled. And I do think that the Valle can scramble with him and come out on top. And I think he will be able to submit him. So ultimately, my lean is him by guillotine. Yes, yeah, dude, we've talked about it before, and that's what I thought Chase Hooper was going to get him with. And Chase Hooper instead took the rear naked choke. Patty Pimblett took the rear naked choke. Valle, I think, could have an opportunity for a rear naked choke, but he's a man that loves a guillotine. I think he's going to go get it. I think he's going to snatch that fight.
He went for that heavy. The Montero fight, he got.
Dude, the Montero fight, he had it, bro.
We bet it too. It too. Fucking disgusting.
Absolutely gorgeous attempt and literally saved by the bell. The dude was folded over his own knees. It was brutal.
Even go back and watch the Matt Seals fight, bro. Matt Seals put him in a guillotine.
Dude, I'm pretty sure Jordan Leavitt has had to defend 5 or 6 submission attempts.
I counted UFC. 5 myself, guillotines alone. So I don't know
about
the other ones.
I was looking at the UFC stats page. My man had the
they're so weird because they don't count them. Like, bro, if Fluffy Hernandez, if you counted every submission attempt Fluffy Hernandez went for it, the guy would average fucking 7 submissions per fucking.
He'd have 100.
Exactly, bro. Dude, let's light one up for poor Juliana Miller, brother.
Absolutely. Spark one for Jules. Spark one for Jules.
I think she's going to get KO'd here. I don't hate the KO at -120 on FanDuel. I think that's a bit crazy of a number when other books have it at more chalk. One thing I will say, I looked up I think you told me about this too. On the UFC page, you go to the athletes, go to the Q&A, you can see their belt in jiu-jitsu. This girl's a blue belt, but she did say her favorite technique is the guillotine, bro. Carly Judice is going to guillotine somebody one day. I don't think it's going to be Miller, but just saying, bro, that sub is going to come for Judice one day. I do think she's getting better. But, yeah, that's the question, right? Is like, if this fight were to go south, how would it go south, Liam? One girl, brown belt and BJJ, under, a guy like Boogie Martinez, very high-level guy, trains at Rick Ladle's gym, Sick Jitsu, Michael Chiasa's camp, another BJJ guy. Let's look at just her jiu-jitsu career alone, bro. Wins over Bia Mesquita, wins over Fatima Klein. Like, pure jiu-jitsu, bro. She fucking murks her, but it's like, how does she get it to the ground? 77% takedown defense for Judice is very solid. I think that's how she wins the fight, brother. Like, unless, Miller pulls guard, something like that. But she's tricky, bro, but no career UFC subs yet. She had sub attempts, has the win on The Ultimate Fighter via Kimura. Obviously, the ground and pound win as well. I like, under 2.5 here. Maybe just Judice KO.
Yeah, I basically lean the same way here. I feel like if you're playing Miller, you have to look at the submission 20-1, and you have to look at Miller takedown props if they're even available, because that's the only way I see her winning this fight. Like, I just think she's going to get fucked up on the feet, right? So it's like, could she win a split decision with like 2 back takes? Sure. But it just feels to me like she's going to be at such a damage deficit in this fight that the way she wins is top position or she's fucked. So for me, pretty clear handicap and hopefully some violence, right? And to your point about the KO, it's like -120 or whatever to Judice on the KO. And looking at the fight, not to go the distance, it's around -200.
Yeah, crazy.
So, it's a really tough fight to get involved in from that standpoint. The other thing about Miller, for all of her faults, her defense is non-existent. She is quite tough. So, in that fight where she's taking just clean punch after clean punch, it's not like she ever quit on herself. She just was literally like overwhelmed and they stopped it out of mercy. I think that could happen here easily, but she's also the kind of girl that like when many other people would look for the door, she's like, "Come on, hit me again, tube sock." Just like too much
she does that
enthusiasm
against
for her own
Judice.
good.
If she does that versus Judice, it's gonna be a fucking quick night, brother.
She's gonna be on the highlight reel. So she needs
It's not like
takedowns.
Judice isn't like a fucking power machine, but she's gonna be hitting her so many times and kicking her in the head and in the legs and in the head, like body. It's just so much, I don't know. How's Miller gonna survive? It could happen.
It's gonna be a massive
WMMA. Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to mention is this girl I saw also at Kingsway Jiu-Jitsu a couple of like last month, cross training there. She's very close to Texas, in Louisiana. That's I think she's also sometimes trains with Matt Schnell, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't seen any video of it, but I thought somebody told me that. So,
all right. So I just knocked her down 2 points in my. No, I'm kidding.
Nah, Schnell's a dude. Schnell is a very
dude. He's very technical. He's got a great triangle.
Guy,
I'm just
right?
fucking around.
I think he's going to be it's the chin, right? I think Matt Schnell is going to be a great coach, bro. Like, I don't know if he has any like fighters right now, but he just started his gym not that long ago out here in Houston. I'm going to give the guy a chance, Let's see if he makes anything out of it.
I just need to know, is a bad chin contagious?
That's a problem. That's a problem. Nah, Schnell's the man. Fucking shout out to that dude. How you like the lighting, bro? Looks fucking cool, dude, right?
You're looking fresh. I love the new setup. You got the mic, the headphones. You're fucking ready to go, my man. It's awesome. You're looking professional. It's a fucking pleasure to have you on the show, my man. And thanks, I hope you've been well. It's been a little while, but I saw Parlay Madness a little bit earlier. I know that you're doing double duty right now, my brother. So appreciate you making the time. The floor is yours, brother. Anything you got to tell the people, where they can find you. Obviously, the Parlay Madness show, you can plug that as well. Let them know, man.
I don't do this all the time.
Great shit going on.
At MMA Jewish Better. At MMA Jewish Better. There you go. Just follow me on X. I post shit on there sometimes, and I'll be at the fights too. Very likely. I haven't bought my ticket yet, but I'm gonna buy it tomorrow. Hopefully,
fashionably late, my man.
Yeah, hopefully it's cheaper. That's the point, right? You wait out for these cards. I think the hype will be there though, just for this specific card. Since some of the things I talked about earlier being, 4 years since they've been to this specific part of Texas. If anybody's gonna be there, come say what's up. You're more than welcome to shoot me a message or just come up to me and say hello. We could smoke a little bit if you want to as well. But don't be on no weird shit because the Jewish Better doesn't like that. JB don't like weirdos. But yeah, like I talked to Lucrative. He said when he went out, everybody was super cool, super nice and in person, right? That's how it always goes. So I think it'll be a good time, bro.
Dude, when I went to UFC Columbus, saw Gordo gamble, saw a bunch of people from the community, had a great fucking time. Newark, New Jersey, had a great time as well for the Islam Poirier card. So always had positive experiences live at the fights. I hope that you have the very same, my man. We wish you all the best. Shout out to H-Town. Shout out to Texas. Y'all are going to be holding it down, getting loud, being proud, I'm sure, in the arena as well. But yeah, my man, I wanted to say thank you so much for popping on the show. You're the man for that. My guy stepped up on short notice, right? No way in. He fucking pulled a Dan Ige 6 hours away, got off the massage table, ready to rumble. So we fucking appreciate you always being ready for the opportunity, my man. Shout out to our guy Wiz, Fallen Soldier. Hope that he's feeling better next week. Shit. But in the interim, guys, I just wanted to say, shout out to the chat, sharpest live chat in the game. Appreciate each and every one of you guys. If you have questions, comments, concerns that we did not address on the show already, go ahead and fire those off in the comment section down below. Yes. I'll try and get to as many of those as possible before fight time. If you guys need more from me, you can find all my stuff down in the description box below. You can find me everywhere on social media at LiamPicksFights, and you can find me each and every week in this chair breaking down these fights for you. God bless. Good luck. Enjoy those fights. Come back next time because we're having all the same fun again, and we will see you. Take care, everybody. Have a good night.